Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Tom Bilyeu Show Live. Man, it was quite the weekend, boys and girls. I hope that you guys were staying sane, as there's plenty of news coming out that the world is entering a phase transition, the likes of which we have never seen before. And one of those transitions is happening to the WNBA. Two former first-round NBA draft picks are planning to join the WNBA as players. Transgenderism in sports is about to get its first real test. We're going to talk all about that. The Trump admin is trying out new propaganda as the war in Iran grows more impossible to win. That one's going to get weird. Lockheed and Raytheon are worried Ukraine will improve Patriot missiles and produce them more cheaply. That is all but a guarantee. We're going to dive into why. El Said, the Senate Democrat frontrunner, he won the primary. He's coming in hot. He admits that for socialist policies to work, the middle class must pay more in taxes. I will say that I'm very happy that they're finally just saying the quiet part out loud now. We're going to go into that. Top longevity scientist says AI did 160 years of research in just a couple of months. As we debate whether AI is real or not, which I still can't believe people think it's a fad, we're going to talk about some of the areas that are being swept under the rug that are the real places of innovation. Chinese military hardware sold to the British Navy was secretly spying on the Navy and sending data back to China. Definitely going to talk about that. All eyes on China. And speaking of all eyes on China, China's central bank bought 20 more tons of gold in July and dumped even more US Treasuries as they continue to race to get out from under the current dollar system. All right, everybody, this one blew me away. Two former NBA first-round draft picks say that they are entering the 2027 WNBA draft. Now, they've made themselves eligible for the draft. We've got to make sure that we keep everything clear. It's not like they're already on a team and they're going to be playing, but it is very much causing a scramble. So Enes Kanter, third overall in the 2011 draft. He's 6'10", and Royce White, who I believe is calling himself Roycia White now, was 16th overall in the 2012 draft, 6'8". Both declared on Friday. Both say they now identify as women. I think it is pretty clear that these two are trolling and they are forcing the WNBA to make a ruling. And ultimately, that's what's going to cover this. Neither of them are making out like this is sincere. Kanter said that his team examined the league's eligibility criteria and that if declaring who you are is all that's needed to meet that requirement, then he meets the requirement. And he signed off with, "See you at training camp." Now, again, I do not think that this is going to go all the way. And I believe that Royce is actually running for office. Drew, can you confirm, is he running for Senate? So I think he's doing this. I think he's trying to get attention basically for his campaign. And this is certainly an extraordinary way to do it. It would be absolutely hysterical if this went all the way to the WNBA, but let's hope that they maintain the sobriety that is needed to realize a very simple definition will sort all of this out. As you guys know, I've got absolutely no beef with people being transgender. So when it comes to sports, you simply have to say, listen, this is about people that are biologically born a certain way, that when physicality is a part of what's going on, that there's a reason that we have historically divided all of this stuff, because if what you want to see is a subset, like, okay, what do men look like when they play? And if you start seeing that at the extreme edges of anything, that minor differences in body composition, in genetics are going to make a huge difference. So one of the stats that I find most fascinating is out of the top 100 marathon runners, something like 90%, it might be a little bit higher, but at least 90% of the top 100 are all of East African descent. Not that they live in East African nations, but they are all of East African descent. Similar ballpark, although I think it was slightly under 90% of Olympic sprinters. The top 100 Olympic sprinters are all of West African descent. Now, when you're sort of looking at the general populace, you're going to find plenty of fast people from all over the world, every ethnicity. But when you start pushing it out into the extremes of the best of the best of the best, then things really, you start seeing the impacts of what might be relatively minor genetic differences, but nonetheless, those played out on the extremes of the bell curve start creating something very different. And this is what in sports we need to recognize, we need to accept. We are having a biological experience. I'm perfectly willing to accept that in the brain, the sense of identity is a different region of the brain that plays out very differently from the physiology that you have. But to pretend that there aren't going to be averages where we are wildly more likely to line up with the biology that we have, that all of those things will work in concert, that's where all of this stuff starts to derange. And if you think that somebody who is, 6'8", 6'10", isn't going to have an advantage over somebody who is much, much shorter than them with much less fast twitch muscle fiber, which tends to be one of the key differentiators between men and women. Men have far more upper body strength than women. You start putting it all together and you have somebody that has far more explosive power, which on the basketball court is going to make a massive difference. They are much farther with the first move, much more dynamic in terms of being able to reach elevations and dunk, et cetera, et cetera. And when this argument is had at the level where it makes sense, like, is there a separate region of the brain that determines one's sense of identity? How much is that influenced by culture? How much of that is influenced by the way that you were raised? I think all of that in the fullness of time will prove to be true. We can get into all the crazy shit about how does Athens end up having a view on homosexuality that today we would find very unexpected. All of those things, I think, we will, especially with AI, we will begin to realize the different areas that end up creating these states, these brain states, neurochemical states, et cetera, sense of perception, all of that. I think we'll finally, over time, be able to map all of this stuff out and see that it is very complicated. But what isn't complicated is when you get to the extremes of performance, are men and women going to be able to perform the same? And when we're talking about basketball, it becomes self-evident that it's never going to be the same. So if you would like to see a league that is almost exclusively transgender males playing in the women's league, then by all means, keep going down this path. And that is precisely what you're going to end up seeing because of those biological differences playing out at the extremes. If, however, you want to maintain the categories so that we can see what does it look like when the best female players play against each other, then you're going to have to separate them. If you don't believe me in the realm of basketball, let's talk about mixed martial arts. Imagine in MMA the same thing, where the explosiveness of upper body strength going male versus female is going to play out in the ability to generate head trauma, for instance. So all of this stuff is completely crazy to me when we try to completely eliminate the reality that we are all prisoners of our biology. We are all having a biological experience. We are all trapped inside of our bodies. Everything is born of that. Now, longtime viewers will know that I believe that free will is an illusion. And so you can carry it from every single thought that we have is generated by biology, and certainly all of our strength, all of our speed, it's all downstream of our biology. And so pretending that we can lather something on at the last minute, even if that is hormones taken very early, there is still going to be a difference. Now, I'm sure that you can mute and block a lot of that difference by messing up somebody's puberty. But, woo, buddy, is that an experiment I think we should really avoid running? But nonetheless, this one is going to get interesting. So the Basketball Association, the WNBA, has realized that they are going to have an emergency meeting and come up with some sort of definition that stops their league essentially from being completely disrupted. As you will inevitably get people that either they're a college athlete and they realize they're never going to make it into the NBA. And so, hey, they're going to declare that they're transgender and find their way into the sport. Anytime you have an incentive system, that incentive system will be abused. This is why you need checks and balances. This feels like one of the great arguments of our time is a worldview coming largely from people that find themselves radically far out on the left end of the spectrum. Not being honest about, not wanting to recognize, or just outright being paristitized by people who are fully aware of what's going to happen, wanting to take advantage of the fact that they don't want to put in limits or restrictions because they don't feel good. They feel disenfranchising to some people, which, by the way, they are. So if we don't learn and embrace the need for constructive discrimination, and I will use that word precisely because I know that it triggers some people, but that is what we want to look at, is boundaries are discriminatory by nature. They are also necessary. Therefore, discrimination at a certain level is necessary. And like all things, discrimination when taken to a pathological level, whether on the we don't discriminate at all, that becomes pathology, or we discriminate far too much, becomes pathology. It's always forcing humans to find that delicate balance that is excruciatingly difficult to maintain, but is nonetheless incredibly necessary if you want to maintain the integrity of a system like the WNBA. Without it, you will see all of this stuff devolve into madness.
I mean, if it was an open league, I would say, yes, this makes sense, but there's a league of owners, there's a integrity of the game, there's a lot of collusion just within the owners themselves. It's a boys club. So I feel like this isn't going to be a thing.
Meaning it will get stopped.
Yes, they're not going to get drafted.
There's no way.
Chance. I will put $1,000 on Kalshi. They're not sponsoring us no more. Don't do that. But I'm just saying, like, it's not a thing. There's no transgender sports. There's no transgender people eligible in the NCAA. So because
they've already ruled against it.
There's just none that they don't play. They haven't crossed that threshold. There's not one WNBA or woman basketball player in the NCAA that identifies as trans. Not near one. There's nobody in the WNBA. There's a lot of lesbos in the WNBA. A lot of studs, a lot of butch ones, a lot of carpet munching. But there is no trans people.
I would like to acknowledge that Drew's views are Drew's alone.
Come on, the WNBA is mad gay girls. They know that. But that's what I mean. Like, they're already, like, you're trying to infiltrate the community that is the community. So it's, I
didn't understand that statement. You're trying to infiltrate the community that is the community.
You're forcing a bunch of people who identify LGBTQ to condemn the T in the LGBTQ when they don't have a problem with that.
You think condemn?
Because they want to come out, this is only for women only.
Yes.
Who are we saying that to? Who's the audience for that? And the audience is a bunch of like men who are outside the league who want them to say women only. And it's like, what are we?
This is interesting. I'm so glad. This is why I love that you and I view the world just differently enough. Okay, so here's why I think that this issue simply will not go away. Okay. I have read this book before, but it was a long time ago and I don't remember it super well. But Stephen Haidt? No, that is not correct.
Jonathan
Haidt, thank you, wrote a book about this topic. Oh God, I'm forgetting the name, where he's talking about the difference in how the left and the right perceive the world. Mm-hmm. And basically the left, okay, remember, I'm talking from a biological perspective. I do not mean this in a political perspective, though they do overlap a lot. So when I say people on the left, I'm talking people that lean left from a temperament perspective, which I believe is an echo of evolution, trying to figure out how do I get these very large groups of people to cooperate together flexibly. And evolution, ahead of time, don't know what kind of environment you're going to be in. So I don't know if I need people that are really going to be focused on caretaking and fairness to keep stability in the group, or if I'm going to need to lean on people that are going to make sure that there are rules, that there are disciplined, and that we can survive a winter. So I'm going to give you both, and I'm going to hold them in dynamic tension. And I'm going to ballpark, I'm going to roughly swag it to women are going to lean more left because they need to be far more focused on caretaking of children. They're going to be focused on group dynamics, cohesion, relationship building. Men are going to be on the other side, far more, these are just averages, but far more disciplinarian, far more focused on rules, regulations, focused on making sure that things are getting done, making sure that people are not abusing the system. And then I'm going to make sure that that the men have an extraordinary desire for sexual access to the females, and that the females will be the sexual gatekeepers. So females will say, hey, listen, if you're an asshole, you're not going to get sexual access. And the guys are like, okay, well, I'm going to be an asshole to a certain point because we've got to take care of business. But at the same time, yes, I do want to please you. And yes, I do want to make sure that you're happy. And it's just way, way, way easier if we're getting a standpoint, which will make you likely to rebel or to go underground and to fight me in ways that are not physical, but are relational, which is exactly what women do. Women are incredibly formidable, but they use a very different strategy of, just to use the language I love so much, they will wage war in a very different way than men will wage war. For men, it is all very direct conflict. It is very just in your face, I'm going to defeat you in this argument, or I'm going to literally beat the life out of you. Whereas women will go back channel, they will use subterfuge, they will use confusion, a whole very potent strategy that, boy, are we glad that we have people that know how to wield that, and we hold each other in this dynamic tension. And it is only when one group becomes unmoored by the other that they spiral off into pathology. So that's evolution. So when I say that somebody is leaning to the left, that's what I'm talking about, this product of evolution. Okay, so you get people that are leaning to the left as a product of evolution. They are focused really strongly on fairness, on making sure that everybody has care, that they are seen as whole and complete and worthy of love, which is awesome, and we should be so glad that that's there. But as that pushes out into the extremes, now you get people that don't recognize, this is Chesterton's fence, that these rules and regulations and discriminatory boundaries, they have a purpose. And when we have had safety and security for as long as we've had, we really start forgetting as a society why these discriminatory boundaries exist. And so if care and fairness is the way in which you reason through the world, remember, this is Jonathan Haidt's work. He's gone through, he's looked at the research, he's studied how people, and I think he was looking at it on a political spectrum, how people on the left and the right reason through the world. And so on that side, it is literally those two things, care and fairness. And through the lens of care and fairness, you understand how they pull in that direction. But when there aren't checks and balances, they pull way too far, and they start treading on the reasons that these boundaries existed in the first place. And this is why the argument will not go away. You're going to keep seeing this. Now, the more that I engage in the world of politics, the more that I engage in trying to make sure that America is going in the right direction, the more I realize I'm hitting up against this exact thing. Now, I think people are grabbing for this intuitively when they want to argue about transgenderism and where this all goes. Many people approach this from a place that is deeply uncomfortable for somebody like me who wants to see care and fairness play out. You want to see these people be able to live whatever dignified life that they want, but maintain the boundaries that we have put in place for a reason. So this is not me defending the way that a lot of people grope for this, but I keep coming up against this reality of the world has been the West, America specifically, has been so safe and so prosperous for so long that people legitimately don't realize that these boundaries exist for very protective mechanisms for groups that need that protection. And so we just tread upon them. So I look at this stuff and I'm like, hold on, like you've got to get people to understand that the boundaries exist for a reason. The fact that we're talking about the WNBA to me is irrelevant. This isn't about the WNBA. This is about people understanding these boundaries exist for a reason. And so you get people making these extravagantly large trolls in the public sphere like this. You can find, in fact, we should play it. You can see Royce White, I believe is his name.
And he is running for Senate.
Okay, perfect. So you can see him making these grand trolling overtures. He was on Alex Jones, wearing a wig, talking about he's never received more hate. He's like, in fact, just play the clip. That's not, I don't think that's the clip. It's the one of him on Alex Jones. There we go. So just play from the beginning of this.
The ship is going down. The fat lady's getting
I don't
ready.
hear it
The
in my
band's
earpiece,
playing.
which makes me nervous.
The band's playing, and there aren't enough lifeboats for everybody. So I thought to myself, if America's headed, down the drain, why not experience what it's like to be a woman? I mean, why would I go my entire life in a man's body to be a woman trapped in a man's body? The torture, the anguish of it.
Obviously joking.
I can't even describe it to you. It's been a revelation. It's like, you can do this, dude. You can do this. You can become the best WNBA basketball player the world has ever seen.
And he would be.
You can go to the WNBA and elevate the entire game. You can draw more eyes. You think Caitlin Clark's drawing eyeballs to the women's game. Wait till me and Enes Kanter get there. Wait until the LeBron Jameses of the world show up. Wait until your young high school athletes decide, you know what? Why would I want to go hang around with a bunch of other sweaty men in a hyper-competitive setting? Just go on over here to the WNBA and experience being a woman, because we all should get the opportunity to experience being the other sex, because it's just a construct anyway. Just a construct. There's nothing to it. There's no difference. But there's no real difference. Come on. There's no real difference between men and women. And we all know that. If you dig deep, if you search your heart, you know. I mean, let me look at you straight on here. If you search your heart,
it's the hair flip for me.
Go home tonight
and the
take some time.
Beard, yeah.
You look in the mirror and you search. You search. Do some deep diving. We all know there's no real difference between men. We know that. We all know.
I feel like we get it.
It's a farce.
Okay, so he goes on to talk about I've never experienced more hate. There was one person, he claims that person is transgender. I don't know. I didn't dig into it, but he said that a transgender person said, "I'm going to find you and I'm going to pistol whip the piss out of you." And then he says, "Ooh, you must be real big if you think you can roll up on me at whatever 6'8", 6'10", and pistol whip me and there isn't going to be a problem." So that's the spectacle. That's where this argument is at risk of being had, is in the spectacle, rather than going, okay, why won't this go away? Why won't either side let go of this? I think it's because if you've got somebody on the left and they really, their worldview is coming from a place, I think there's really two things going on. There are people that understand that they can take advantage of this. So they know how to weaponize this to silence other people, et cetera, with claims of bigot and the like. We saw how powerful that was in 2020. And then I think there are sincere people that are recognizing that when you put boundaries up, that there are people that are excluded and it doesn't feel good. And there are people that really do get marginalized because they are part of a group that has no political power. There are so few of them that there just isn't enough energy behind them. And so they want to speak up for that person. This is why the narrative center of Marxism is all about oppressed and oppressor. And that dynamic really speaks to people that have a left-leaning personality. And so if you're somebody who's trying to wield power, you can weaponize that to get those people to be like, oh my God, this is actually true. Now, if you think about the fact that they're not recognizing that it's true from a rational place, they are feeling their way through it. They're emoting through it. And that's another part of Jonathan Haidt's work, is that people on the left are first intuiting something, their morality, they're intuiting their morality by the way that things feel, and that feels desperately unfair. And it is, quite frankly, desperately unfair if you take it just at a purely biological level, right? I'm never going to succeed in the NBA. I'm too awkward. I don't have enough of a base of fast twitch fiber, such that even with a lot of training and coordination for that matter, because I played basketball for years and am just unbelievably uncoordinated, ungifted at it. And so while I could get 100 times better, as all of us can get 100 times better at something, as you get into the elite realm, I'm just never going to be good at that. And so there is something desperately unfair about the genetic lottery that we all get. So, but whatever, it is what it is. And so when you reason your way to a morality through what feels right, and you're somebody who wants to weaponize that to gain power, you can get a mass of people who feel like that, and you start moving down a path. Okay, so now you get that going as both a weapon and as somebody who's reasoning their way to that from the framework of prolonged safety. And so they're going to go hard in the paint for that, not realizing the kinds of things that will break down the line. And when I come back to, how on earth is Marxism, the world's most failed political ideology of all time, the most murderous political ideology of all time, the most ineffective economic ideology of all time, how is it making a resurgence? And why is it always resurging on the back of prolonged periods of success where you overproduce elites? And that's why this argument is going to be had. It is going to keep being had until we finally return to some sanity back in the middle. Now, it seems to me from a historical lens that you really do have to have a tremendous amount of suffering to the point where people are eager to reimpose boundaries and rules because it's the only way to actually generate the momentum that we need. Okay, period. Hopefully everybody's with me so far. Now, I want you guys to really step back and look at what it would take to get America going in the right direction again. It's going to take fiscal discipline. Okay, so now we're pulling to the right. It is going to take the kind of understanding that everything is a trade-off, that you can't emotion your way, you can't intuit your way to the right set of principles, because it's not going to feel good. It's going to feel like discrimination. It's going to, meaning, I'm speaking very specifically of immigration. It's going to feel like, yeah, we have to say we're going to take care of the people within our borders, the people that are citizens, because money is finite, because prosperity is something that actually has to come from making real things, innovating, getting more efficient over time. So you look at China, and I'm certainly happy to have what is the argument about what China's actual economic policies are, because people are going to say, but wait, that's a Marxist system. It is not, very aggressively, very provably not. But for now, let's just know that I don't believe that it is. So you've got China over here that is proving to be the world's most successful country from a manufacturing standpoint, actually making things focused on innovation. You've got the US, which is doing the traditional empire thing, which is financializing everything and making easy money just to round it to something, not having to do the hard work of actually building and innovating and employing and focusing on the middle class and all that. We don't have to do any of that because we've been prosperous for so long that we could just outsource everything to everybody else, disguise our declining economy by getting everything cheaper, by importing cheap labor, by outsourcing things to the rest of the world and getting cheap goods back. Okay, that is the playbook that every empire ends up running, because you can promise a lot of free stuff to people and you get elected by doing that. Okay, because humans are a certain way. We have a nature as a big collective. We have a nature. It is very knowable, and this is precisely why history rhymes. And so in the time where that is happening, for us to fight our way back, we have to go in the opposite direction. We have to do the hard work of building in the country. We have to do the emotionally taxing thing of saying our borders are strong and protected, and that means that people that aren't in our country are going to suffer because they're not able to get into the wealthiest nation on planet Earth. But we have to answer the question of how we became the wealthiest country on planet Earth, and that is through having these boundaries, having the discipline, focusing on doing the blocking and tackling of preparing for an economic winter, so on and so forth, preparing to defend our nation, et cetera, et cetera. And so the spectacle of this debate is all about two guys that are clearly trolling, trying to get into the WNBA. But the real argument is one of discriminatory borders having a very important role in creating protections. And people very rarely are able to have the argument at that layer, which is the only productive layer. Instead, they're going to scream and shout about care and fairness, et cetera. Or on the other side, where you've got the right that are trolling, just trying to get everybody to accept you guys are stupid, you can't even define what a woman is, that it really isn't that. Like, imagine somebody instead with a real sincere heart trying to say woman is an exclusionary category. If somebody has even if you want to say that it's mental illness, but they have this feeling that they're completely divorced from their own body, it doesn't feel right. Now, as a parenthetical around that, there are people that get parts of their body amputated because a part of their brain does not, this is a real thing, a part of their brain is unable to recognize a leg or an arm as part of their own body. So they feel that an alien limb has been grafted onto them, and they are just freaking out because they have this alien thing that's a part of their body, and they know that their life would be better if they got rid of it. Again, you can sum it up as mental illness and just wipe that person away, or you can remember that would suck. And there, but for the grace of God, go you, right? That could have happened to you. And if somebody is in that position and they're being excluded from an artificial category of woman, then why don't we just break those walls down and let people come in? Now, there is a reason, and it's an extraordinarily profoundly important reason, and we must do it. But if you see somebody that is legitimately like But that sucks. And I don't want to see this person that I love and care about, or just knowing that there are people, I don't even know them, but just knowing that they're suffering in that way. And we can simply break down these borders and they would feel loved and included. Like, why won't we do that, right? That becomes the argument if you can take that on board. And so again, you can't give into it. You've got to put up these borders because there are all these insane knock-on effects that become wildly problematic that absolutely disintegrate your society. Your society devolves into madness. But if you can't at least understand how a sincere person could end up there, then it just becomes, we argue at the level of spectacle always and forever. And by not reorienting ourselves and grounding in what's really happening, then we don't put in the solves. And without the solutions, we might have a great time at the level of theater. We might have a great time calling the other side stupid. That might be wonderful or evil. It isn't going to solve the problem. And so the empire does crumble. And then we find ourselves in so much pain and suffering that we will once again embrace the very difficult things. But boy, do I hope that we can get out of this and not need to go to that level of suffering.
Understood. I want to move on to the Iran war.
Let's go.
There's been a lot of speculation about what's going on right now, but this is from the Kobayashi letter. Breaking, President Trump has been floating the idea privately to senior aides that he's willing to walk away from the Iran war without a nuclear deal should Iran fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz, per the Wall Street Journal. Details include, this objective reportedly became more difficult yesterday when Iran insisted on its highest price yet for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. 2, Iran is now seeking billions of dollars in U.S. payments, the removal of U.S. troops from the region, among other things, to reopen Hormuz. 3, U.S. officials said Trump is patient and expected to ride out the latest developments as long as gas prices remain where they are. 4, Trump has reportedly told senior aides that Iran is likely unable to revive its nuclear work during his presidency. The Iran war negotiations are becoming increasingly complicated.
Yeah, so to me, none of this is new. This is basically the Trump administration floating new propaganda to see how people respond. So as Drew was just saying, reports are that privately, Trump is admitting that he can't win the war in Iran. And now he's just looking for an exit ramp. This is something we've been talking about for a long time. It is self-evident that this was going to be the case. He was trying to do these very fast strikes that were reminiscent of what he did in Venezuela. It didn't work. And once you're running up against a public that is unwilling to support this, and you can't make the weaponry fast enough, and the new way of using asymmetrical warfare, largely using cheap drones that have to be defended against with far more expensive ordinances, you were going to end up in this situation. Now, the Wall Street Journal reported Sunday that Trump is privately talking to his senior aides and letting them know that he might be willing to end the campaign even without a nuclear deal. Now, I think what he's saying here, that they're not going to be able to rebuild their nuclear program, is propaganda. I think the real answer is they probably won't be able to rebuild it while he's in office. But this either was a problem or it wasn't. And if we haven't broken their will to pursue it, then we know that they are going to pursue it. Now, good sense still may be that you've just got to eject out of this. So I'm not saying that that means that he's got to keep going. I think that if he is unable to, because I actually don't think that we're in an unwilling, I think he really is unable. I think that we have made so many foolish decisions over the last 30 years about manufacturing that we really are in a position where we're not going to be able to make these. And we'll talk more about this when we get to the Ukraine war and selling them munitions and not being willing to let them build them themselves. But the fact that we're not able to make our own munitions, you are actually stuck. You're not going to be able to put enough force on Iran that they're going to break and then give you the concessions that they want. And being the way that our government works with the election cycles, democracy, we are not going to just be able to push through all of this and make our people deal with whatever happens economically. They're just going to vote the Republicans out of power. And so Trump knows that. So now he's floating this new propaganda to see how people respond. And he's going to test out the language of, okay, they won't be able to rebuild their nuclear program. And if people go, yeah, word, they're not going to be able to rebuild their nuclear program, then he's going to take that exit ramp. If people go, hey, hold on, you kept saying that this is why you were pushing it. What changed? Nothing changed. So the fact that nothing has changed, other than that you can see that you're not going to be able to get a deal, then this was all for naught. You never should have gone in the first place. You didn't have the will or you didn't have the ability to see this all the way through. You assessed this situation very poorly. If that's the response that he gets, now he's back in a difficult situation. Now, I think the reality is he's going to get some of all of the above. His most like hardcore supporters are going to say, yeah, cool. Yes, they're never going to be able to rebuild it. Got it. Great. And they'll have the words that they'll be able to say for the next 18 months. But people that are in the center or on the left, they're all going to say that's bullshit. He obviously overplayed his hand. He did not have all the cards as he wanted us to believe. And we never should have gone into this war in the first place. And the great irony that the only thing that's allowing him to buy more time is that we're probably in the middle of a global recession that is far darker than anybody wants to admit, led by China. And given that the oil demand has been being destroyed for quite some time, and China was just masking that by building up this absolutely gigantic historic stockpile of oil instead of earlier, before the Iran war, beginning to back off, which would have signaled to the world that their economy was not as good as they were claiming it was, that's the only thing that's going to allow gas prices to stay as muted as they are and buys him more time. But knowing if anybody is telling this guy the truth and is making it clear that we basically never rebounded from the 2008 financial crisis, we're still in the aftermath of that. We've just been masking it with more cheap labor, more cheap goods, and massive inflation. That is not the out that you want. That is not the thing that you want buying you time, because then it buys you time to get out from under the Iran war, but it's not going to give you the growth that you need in order to maintain Republican control. And so if the economy is going downhill, then whether they lose at the midterms or not, the odds that they lose in 2028 go way up. And so then you get the only other saving grace is, are we now so far to the left? Has the Democratic Party been so captured by the far left communists? And oh God, this is one of those things. They really are communists. They're provably communists in their own words. So I don't mean that as a buzzword. I don't mean that as like somebody who's got a closet full of MAGA hats. I mean that as literally they are communist in policy. If they become so far captured, it's possible that they have shot themselves in the foot. But God, is that where we want to be? Do we want more bad economic policy on the right to win because the bad economic policy on the left is just that much worse? Let's not let that happen. Boys and girls, if you are a part of this community, let's really focus on the things that we would need to do. We will certainly spend our time lamenting the things that don't make sense. We will certainly spend our time directly contradicting communist policies and explaining why they don't work. But let's also remember that being proud of your country, whether that's the US or whatever country you're part of, is a very wise idea. Finding your way back to the middle to love the people that see the world differently than you is very wise. You need to battle their ideas. There's no doubt about that. But boy, do you want to recognize that, yes, there are some people, this is a naked power grab and they're evil and they're bad and we will need to talk about them, isolate them, point to the things that they're doing that are that. But we also need to remember that there are people that are diametrically opposed to our ideas, but they are sincere people and they really want something good. And you have to find a way to march together. And marching together means understanding what are the things that they need as well. You've got to want that dynamic tension. So we'll spend an inordinate amount of time on this channel talking about those things. So I want to see America do well. I want to see America work for the middle class. And I want to see an America that finds its way back to the middle, that doesn't spend its time, certainly not exclusively, dunking on the other side and saying how stupid they are. We need to find a path to get back together.
I'm trying to...
What was that? What was that button?
Yeah, we got a new button?
I love democracy.
Oh, okay.
Well, democracy is going to be debated. I'll just tell you that. That's going to get interesting.
I'm verifying this, but there was a lot of Iranian script, and I can't read. So I'm sorry, guys. But the Hormuz report is now reporting that Iran has completely ruled out any future negotiations with the Trump administration, declaring it will wait out Donald Trump's term until January 2029.
Yeah. And why not? Like if they know, so, okay, listen. we're being propagandized by Iran.
Mm-hmm.
We're being propagandized by the Trump administration. We're being propagandized by the mainstream media. Anytime anybody uses a word, they are propagandizing you, myself included. You can't speak without trying to pull people into your frame of reference. Now, some people do it cynically. Mainstream media is cynical. Anybody who's partisan is cynical. So for sure, the Trump administration is cynical. Iran for sure is cynical. So you have to like filter through all of that. It's entirely possible that the economic situation in Iran is worse than they're letting on. It would almost have to be. One of their primary GDP generators is energy, and that has certainly been wildly disrupted. But can they outweigh us? Yes, of course they can. Any country that's willing to make its people suffer is going to be able to wait for a very, very, very long time. It's not like Iran is going to fall into the sea. So that's what people need to understand. Now, are they going to have some sort of Soviet collapse style? Almost certainly not. So you've got a theocratic regime. They are still in control unless they have their own internal civil war, and members of the IRGC specifically are so divided that they end up in a bad place. That is the only way that you could hope that they become so internally discombobulated that you can just sort of ignore them, unite the rest of the GCC countries. They become so dysfunctional that they can't really do anything. But it's going to take, the only way to do that is to bury the pipelines. They're working on it now, meaning the other countries work around the Strait of Hormuz. This is a big part of the cynical, in my opinion, propaganda coming out of the Trump administration, is you've got Bessent saying, oh, we're just going to make the Strait of Hormuz irrelevant. You're going to hear Trump talk a lot. He's already said this. You're going to hear more of it. We don't even need the Strait. So we're just going to let the other countries come and deal with this themselves. But the reality, yeah, if you want to play that clip.
We've speculated the Strait will never go back to being the way it was before. What would you say?
I would take, I think they're saying that in a doomsday sort of way. I would say it in another way. The Strait is never going back to the way it was because the Iranians have used or tried to use it as a choke point. What we are going to see over the next 2 years, the Strait's going to become irrelevant. It is going to become just another body of water, and I would say that more than 50 or 70% of the energy that moves through the Strait now is going to go through underground pipelines.
Okay, so that is almost certainly true, but that is going to take a very long time to pull off. In the meantime, people are also going to be transitioning over to solar. That is certainly true. Look at what's happening in China. But the West largely is just completely out of their minds. They're dysfunctional. There's so much infighting in so many places in the West that this paints a picture that makes it sound like this is going to be easy. This is not going to be easy. And we're going to have to start fixing a lot of our economic problems if we want to not just get out from under the war in Iran, but we actually want to get things trending in the right direction. Europe is an absolute mess. They are acting like the US is going to take care of them forever. They're acting like they don't have to innovate. They're acting like they don't have to make any trade-offs. Remember, these are countries that won't even let their citizens have AC, man. Like, this is so wild. They are killing far more, yes, they are killing far more people from heat stroke than are dying from anything related to atmospheric emissions. So it's like, this is like, it's wild. So anyway, we're going to have to get out from under all of that. We're going to have to get things moving in the right direction. That is going to be an absolutely massive mountain to climb. This is propaganda. So it's one of those, it's both true and being framed in a way that is propagandistic because they're making it sound so easy. So don't buy into any of that stuff. Okay, all of that to say, Iran is probably in much bigger trouble than they want to let on, but they'll be able to wait out they'll be able to wait out the Trump administration. The thing that should be on everybody's list of questions to get answered is what is going to happen between a Democratic Party that is being pulled farther and farther left and when they meet Republicans in not a primary, but an actual open election. And that remains a huge question mark. And so we don't have that answer. Now, if they actually start winning, and you can have, like, the one for me is Francesca Hong. She, first of all, is not intellectually powerful at all. You look at somebody like Mamdani, he's smart. He's super eloquent. His smile is so warm and inviting, and you dismiss that at your peril. And so you've got somebody who knows how to play the game. You've got somebody who's got real star power. People want to be around him. Francesca Hong is unimpressive in every way. She is not eloquent. She's not powerful. She just says the party line. So if somebody who simply recites the party line goes from saying that Thanksgiving is problematic and we should have gotten rid of it back in 1621 or whatever date she gave, and is now saying it is my favorite, and I quote, my favorite holiday. I don't want to cancel it. And by the way, saying it like she is, I don't want to be unkind. She's saying it like she's tired. You could certainly read that as the SSRI eyes. I hate to say it. That's probably uncharitable and shame on me. But nonetheless, at a minimum, she seems fatigued and uninspiring. So on that, I would say if she wins, yikes, you've got a real problem. If she beats a cogent, non-far right candidate who's just, listen, this is what would have been a mainstream Democratic position back in the 90s. If she beats that, we got problems, man. We got real problems.
Speaking of your favorite political party, the DSA, Michigan Senate candidate El Said has said that middle class taxes will rise in order to enact all of his healthcare program.
Okay. One, thank you for setting me up like that, because boys and girls, you've just been propagandized by the Tom Billy Show. That's going to get clipped. Okay, so the truth is that El Said is not a member of the DSA. He's been very careful to distance himself from it, but all of his talking points are identical. So he is, to me, spouting the same stuff, but he is officially not a member of the DSA, just to be clear. DSA called him a longtime ally. And then also, if you listen to the clip, which we will do, he isn't saying exactly that. He's saying that basically your taxes are going to replace the way that you pay for healthcare. So he never admits that taxes are going to go up. It is true, but just in trying to absolutely minimize the amount that I propagandize people, that is the reality. But let's play the clip, and then we're going to talk about why I think this guy is deeply troubling.
Make Medicare free and universal if you increase taxes. So if you are elected and make this push, would you need to increase taxes?
As I've said across this campaign, I am for taxing billionaires their wealth.
What about people who make
And
less than
for
$1
the
billion and
average
less
person-
than $1 million, though, Dr. El Sayed? What about people making less than $1 million?
So for the average person, and you look at your W-2, if you're an employee who gets paid every 2 weeks or 4 weeks, after you pay your taxes, the next biggest check that comes off the top of your pay stub is to your health insurance company. So imagine instead of paying that to your health insurance company, whose CEO makes $20 million a year, instead you paid a little bit more in taxes for healthcare that you wouldn't lose if you lost your job or turned 26 or got married or got divorced. I think all of us would be a lot more interested in that kind of a system if we knew that our healthcare would be free at the point of care and would be free without having to worry about losing it in general. So there's an opportunity here, I think, to trade what we give to a big corporation who gets to decide who we get to see and who we don't for a little bit more paid into FICA. And I think that's a trade that's worth making. I think the broader public understands that that's a trade worth making, considering how many people are holding medical debt, a third of all Michigan households right now.
Just to be very clear, you're describing this trade-off. You are effectively acknowledging that people making less than $1 million could see their taxes go up. I just want to be very clear. Is that a yes?
I'm saying that we'd be paying for healthcare in a different way. Instead of paying a health insurance company whose CEO makes $20 million, I would much rather pay
so good at talking
for
points.
durable healthcare into a government, which, of course, we all know provides healthcare for seniors who need healthcare the most. So if I'm trading paying a CEO to make more money or paying government to guarantee me healthcare.
Okay, so this is where this stuff gets high risk. This guy is very good at talking points. He's very good at avoiding questions, as so many politicians are on both sides of the aisle. It is something I despise, regardless of political affiliation. But El Said is very good at this. And what he doesn't say, so he had an opportunity to say, listen, this isn't going to cost you more money. In fact, this is going to be something that is picked up by the billionaires. They're going to cover all of this. And the reason that he doesn't do it, knowing how good he is because he knows that that isn't true. And he knows at the end of the day that if you want to create the kind of social democracy, it's always so hard to separate the DSA from what's going on in the Nordic countries. If you want social democracy, which the DSA tries to confuse you and get you to think that they are one and the same, they are aggressively not the same. But if you want social democracy, you can absolutely have it, but it requires you to have an absolutely massive, broad tax base. So people think that billionaires could pick up the tab, they just refuse to do so. Even if you tax them at 100%, you're not going to get, even if you tax their wealth at 100%, which would be destructive in the economy in ways that would be absolutely impossible to comprehend, it would be an economic meteorite the size that killed the dinosaurs. Okay, it would destroy your economy. Okay, so nobody's putting that forward, even though the one that they're putting forward will be very destructive, more slow, but it will be very destructive. But the reason he doesn't take that opportunity is he understands that what this is going to be is a broad-based tax that applies to everybody out of necessity. It's going to be the only way to pay for it. Now, also, very important things to understand is that right now, American firms account for 55% of global pharmaceutical R&D. So when you look at the American system, we have to acknowledge that part of the reason that the American system is the way that it is right now is we are the only place in the world where innovation is happening. It's not like there are these deep R&D pipelines the world over. The rest of the world has the systems they have because America has the system it has, meaning it has more free markets. Our system is an absolute mess. This is not me going to bat for our system. The reason that corporations pay for it instead of the government goes back to something in the 1940s, a tax policy that was put forward. Anyway, set that aside. What you have to contend with is right now, people all over the world will come to America to get like the highest quality care that they can get. They all get our pharmaceuticals. They all get the innovations that we do in medical devices shipped to them because the industry that we have actually uses some, although wildly bastardized, free market systems. If we still want there to be innovation in healthcare, either the entire world is going to have to realize that they've been riding on our coattails and start sharing in the burden of innovation, or the US is going to have to decide, okay, the thing that we want to pay for is healthcare. That's going to be the thing that we make this trade-off for. We're going to go broad-based, but we still have to find a way to make sure that there's enough free market incentives. And if you want to go with a full China model, great. And you say, listen, healthcare is the thing that we're going to put federal dollars behind. We're going to make sure that the infrastructure is there. We're going to make sure that we pick up the tab as taxpayers for anything that there isn't free market incentives to build. But we are then going to make these companies compete with each other. And so they are all going to compete to provide the best, cheapest service to this government-run healthcare thing. Okay, that is like the Chinese system does some things very brilliantly. And this would be one of them. So if you want to adopt something like that and force these free market competitions within a protected industry, great. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about right now is these guys are making out like there's some fairy tale land where you just tax billionaires more and suddenly you get this amazing system that PS does not exist anywhere else in the world because it's all downstream of American innovation. And so this is once again us not being honest about what's really going on. So we've got to say we can have anything we want, but not everything we want. And we have to start putting the mile markers in of what is it exactly that we want. So he talks about the buzzword is free at the point of care. Now he's careful to say that because you're going to pay for it in 1,000 other ways. You're going to pay for it with something like a VAT tax. You're going to pay for it with increased income tax. You're going to pay for it by trying to get more by taxing billionaire wealth. That's a whole separate fractal I'm not going to go into now, but will not be as lucrative as people think it is.
Fractal.
Thank you. So that is where if we're going to have the conversation, we have to have the real conversation. These are talking points. This is part of what is pushing us more and more to the left, is it is easy to sell something that isn't real, but sounds awesome than it is to actually back it up with policy.
Let's go point by point, because I think we need to like kill this animal and like put it to bed once and for all.
What's this animal?
The health insurance like conversation.
Okay.
Because I do think on one side you have a point that American pharmaceuticals are the most innovative. Yep. We currently don't subsidize that at all unless it's for old people, because Medicare, there is a discounted pharmaceutical program.
We subsidize the life out of it. What are you talking about?
Our federal tax dollars don't go to pharmaceutical companies directly. They go through Medicare.
True.
Yeah.
But the way that so right now, the big problem that we have in the way that our healthcare works is the government is paying for Medicare for sure. You've got more people going into that every day. you've got Medicaid, you've got basically forced health insurance compliance and with Obamacare. And it creates
those are 3 different levels.
Yes, that are all causing distortions in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening is we have created a system where the hospitals knowingly charge you more money if you have insurance than they do if you don't have insurance. So they're creating a system where it's like, well, we're going to take care of people. We're going to try to wipe out as much of their debt as we can by just reducing the cost of this thing. So you've got 2-tier pricing, insurance, no insurance, which is already insane and honestly should be illegal. But you've got that. And then you've got them knowing, because of the way that the system works, people are going to have health insurance. So it creates then this burden on, you're going to pick up the tab somewhere. Remember, you can't remove the cost of something. You can only shift it. So we've shifted it to companies. So now you've got companies, they're forced to pay into it. Employees are forced to pay into it. And the hospitals and care providers know that you're going to have insurance, so they're going to rake those rates up as high as they can, basically artificially inflating those numbers because they know that they're going to be paid no matter what. If you had a system where they only know they're going to get paid for services that people actually agree are worth the money, now all of a sudden people start going, well, I want to win the race to make the best Band-Aid at the lowest cost. Forget CT scanners and shit like that, emergency care, cancer, all that. Like, set the life-threatening stuff aside. I agree that we don't want people getting crushed under medical debt. Okay, we're going to set that aside for a second. Just look at the perverse incentives when you know that bill is going to be picked up. Now there's no price signal. So there was a guy named Ludwig von Mises. Some people pronounce it Mises, whatever. Famous, I believe he was an Austrian economist, part of the Austrian School of Economics. And he wrote this paper that ended up explaining why communism doesn't work, why it always fails. And the answer was, you lose the price signal. The price signal tells you where you have to put energy to make something better. Price signal tells you where something doesn't matter. And so now people will look at their hospital bills and they'll be aghast because it'll be like, I paid $32 for a Band-Aid. And you're like, what? Like, in what universe is a Band-Aid, which I could go to CVS and I can get 100 Band-Aids for, $12. It's like just patently absurd. And so they do that because they know they have a guaranteed payer because of the way that our system is. And so unfortunately, getting Obamacare and saying you have to have insurance now creates a situation where less people are uncovered, which is directionally good. But now where it's like, well, we can just throw these costs up. And so those costs go into the employer. Then the employer goes, well, I've got to charge more for my goods because my costs go up. Also gives them an incentive to go find cheap labor elsewhere because they've got to make up for the extra money that they're paying for in healthcare. And so it just becomes this snowball of companies are going to get a certain profit margin. They're going to try. They're going to try for that profit margin because 94% of all businesses fail to make $10 million in revenue. So going into business is essentially an admission that I'm going to work really hard to go broke. And once you understand that's the truth of being an entrepreneur, you suddenly realize, okay, the reason they started doing this was to offer it as a perk to try to get employees. And then it became a mandate that they have to do it. So now it's no longer, well, I offer this extra thing to try to get people. And it became, that's just where we do it. And now everybody has to have it. And employers have to offer it. And it's getting more expensive because of the things that I just said. And so it devolves into this incredibly insane thing because, as Ludwig von Mises tried to tell us, you absolutely cannot get rid of the price signal. The price signal has to be a legitimate thing born of the market where people go, I'm not going to pay $32 fucking for a Band-Aid. I'm going to send my wife out to get some and bring them in and I'll fucking put it on. But they make all of that impossible. All of that disappears. And if I'm a Band-Aid maker, I don't go, oh, I want to make my Band-Aids as cheap as possible. I become a gigantic conglomeration. I buy up all the other Band-Aid companies and now it's J&J as far as the eye can see. I charge whatever the fuck I want and I know that this is going to be paid for because everybody's forced to have insurance. And so it is the, I'm going to use a fancy word, it is the perturbations that setup enters into the pricing that creates the madness that we see. And then we get mad and we go, well, this is just greedy corporations. It's like, fucking hell, this is not that. identify the problem. You've done a good job of that. Healthcare is too expensive. People are getting crushed under the debt.
There are monopolies. There are people who are price gouging. There are hospitals that aren't transparent with their pricing. So all that's on the table, yes.
Yep. And so now solve those problems.
Yeah.
Solve those problems, and a lot of this will go away. But if you pretend that all you have to do is create a single payer in the government and this goes away, that is acting as if we are not nested in a system that isn't, because we're looking at the Nordic countries just as an example. We're saying, but look, they do it. They do it because of what we do. And so it's like, okay, we can take the trade-off of there's no more innovation, certainly not at the level that there was before, do that. Or we can say, no, innovation is what we're going to point our tax dollars at, and we're going to make sure that we're driving the cost down.
Innovation in the healthcare market, because I don't think we're
in medical supplies.
There's literally medical tourism. People go to other countries now to get procedures because it's cheaper and more cost effective than to do it in the U.S.
Yeah, and
so
look,
the U.S. is no longer the
this
North
is
Star.
where I would have to really do a deep dive, and so I don't want to be flippant. But if you look at because I'm married to a Brit, I am intimately familiar with how their system works, and so all of them. Not all of them. Anyone who can afford it has two kinds of insurance. They do the NHS, which they pay into, is not free. They are taxed to death for it.
Yep.
So they are forced to pay into the NHS.
Yeah.
And then if they can afford it, they also carry private insurance. So you should just assume the same thing will happen here. Now, if you're a smart shopper, you go, okay, I want to get this procedure done. Am I better off going to Turkey to get my hair plugs? Do I go to Mexico for my LASIK? And you figure out who's got the best whatever. The ones that are really high end tend to be, you come to America for the best of the best. If you're I really got to survive this, or I'm an NBA athlete, it's you're going to, odds are, come here, unless we've made it illegal. We've pushed things like stem cells off to other places, but because we've made it illegal. But if it isn't illegal here, you're going to find, again, I haven't gone deep enough. I may myself be surprised. It's not as much as I thought. But looking at this stuff, there is a lot that people come to America for.
Okay, so let's break it down, because I get the rundown. I'm looking at it from, a lot of people look at their W-2 paycheck breakdown.
Yep.
Right now, we all pay into Medicare. We all pay into Medicaid, whether we're 65 or whether we're not. So if you're 17, you get your first check, you throw into that pool. I think that's the part that is the frustration, is that we're already subsidizing somebody else's health insurance.
Yes.
So if I were to hypothetically double that number, I then, or to Saeed's point, I take away the health insurance premium that I'm paying to United directly through my employer. I put it into that same Medicare bucket that I'm paying for, and then now I have single payer, things like that. To your point, there's always going to be a two-tier system, people who go with the private, public, people who go with private. I don't think we're going to eliminate that here. I also don't think that we're going to be able to flip a switch and intertwine all these things. We do have Obamacare, we do have private insurance, we do have Medicaid, we do have state Medicare. So there's definitely some things that we'll have to unwind in order to make single payer transparent. We also have to do, we have to take an honest look at the monopolies. We have to take an honest look at the PBMs, what Mark Cuban has been banging the drum about.
Great point.
So there's definitely different layers of the things in healthcare that we do need to unwind. However, if we were to step into the ought of it all, would you think it's better that we don't subsidize anything, and then everybody, so the 65-year-olds who can't afford it, they'll just have to figure it out, but nobody gets anything taken out of their check? Or is it we all pay, hypothetically speaking, an extra $200, and then now it's everybody gets level 6 shitty healthcare, and then you just pay for level 10 if you really need it? Do you think that's a better solution, or do you think it could just be independently private, no money is subsidized at all, and we completely get out of the healthcare system from a federal government level?
Okay. Do you want Tom Bilyeu's ought of it all?
Yeah, we're in ought. We're not in is. We're in ought.
Okay.
If we can, if
buddy,
we can
this
magic
is
brush
be
it.
unpopular. Here is Tom Bilyeu's ought. There's no universe in which you can rightly ask people to pay an equal amount for care that is so dependent on lifestyle choices. So already from what is the right way to do this, there would have to be some reflection of what are your lifestyle choices. And so your contributions should be higher or lower, bless you, based on whether you are living a lifestyle that is from an actuarial table, because it's always going to be odds, because God only knows, you're living near a radon deposit, you don't realize, and you get lung cancer even though you're really taking care of your health and you're doing your best and all that. you could have a genetic predisposition and not know. Like there's all kinds of just bum deals. But you look at things on an actuarial table and you say, okay, you fall into one of these categories. And so already people should be, at a minimum, even if we're not going to punish people for bad health choices, we should definitely be rewarding people for good health choices. So that would be one thing that I would really like to see. And then also, I don't think people should be able to vote for things that influence their tax dollars if they don't pay tax. Like if you're not a net contributor, like you don't get a say in this, in my opinion. Like that's crazy. People are just going to vote for whatever gives them the most free shit because they're not paying into it anyway. And then on top of that, we want to have the free market as active as humanly possible so that we're incentivizing innovation, because what I want to see is my life expectancy going up. And so I want to see that we are stepping one more very important brick. I think that right now it feels great to say one of the things that we're really going to focus on making sure that people have access to is healthcare. I love that. That's one of those things where I'd be like, yeah, I have no problem paying taxes for that. Same with anything that goes to help make our kids, the highest performing kids, the planet over. Taxpayer dollars all day for that. I would love that. Now, a key part of this becomes we can have that if we want it from a tax perspective, but we have to balance the budget. So if we balance the budget and then say, well, the thing that we really want to pay for is to make sure that everybody has healthcare, and that we're looking at life expectancy and we're looking at percentage of people being crippled by debt. Those feel like really smart things to look at, but all of that has to be predicated on a balanced budget.
Ipso facto, that lets us know where we stand. Because you talked about it, I wanted to hit the education thing real quick. If I can find about how our education system is a joke and how we've been spending upwards of $40,000, $40K, yes. A tweet, $40K per pupil, and most students can't read properly. For the record, we could spend 100% on the budget on education and it won't pursue the situation one iota. Spending isn't the problem. The problem is a corrupt and politicized education system that has mostly given up on teaching, and importantly, the discipline required to ensure students must actually learn. Decline is a choice, and the collapse of public education was a choice by progressive, quote-unquote, experts, bureaucrats, and teachers union. This is based on a report that more than half of NY 3rd to 5th graders fail reading proficiency tests.
Damn. That is so brutal. To me, that one is a no-brainer. We should be looking at our students and figuring out what does excellence look like, and are we achieving it? And the reality is that this goes back to what I was talking about before. You've got people on the left that do not want exclusionary boundaries. So, for instance, I tried and failed to get into the gifted classes I got in for math, which is ridiculous. Mom, I'm looking at you. I think my mom campaigned for that one. But I wasn't able to get in on English and all that. So most of my friends were all in they went to the gifted schools and they had AP placements and all that. And I wasn't able to get into that program, at least not in middle school. I think in high school, I got into a couple AP classes. But that meant that I was on the outside, and that I knew I was on the outside because I specifically went and took the testing and couldn't get in. And so that is as it should be. The fact that I wasn't able to get in, that's a me problem. So that isn't, we don't want Tom to feel bad. We want to make sure that everybody is able to be in the same program. That's stupid. You are competing on an international stage. And unfortunately for all of us, youth matters a lot. And when you train kids to really be extraordinary high performers, you find the kids that want to do it. You encourage, you incentivize, you give them a structure in which they can shine and grow and get great. You should be celebrating your math Olympiads as hard as you celebrate your track and field stars. And we have just completely lost the plot on a willingness to say some kids are going to be more talented than others in a whole host of different areas. We should want that. We should nurture that talent. We should grow that talent. And the fact that it's going to leave people aside, like myself, is just tough titties. That is crazy to me that we're not recognizing that excellence is also a choice and that we can steer kids down these paths of becoming extraordinary. Now, if at the end that kid is like, I'm burning out, I don't want to do this anymore, fine, so be it. But you're going up against China, man, and China is making sure if you've got potential, that potential is actually turned into skills. And if you don't have potential, you are ejected out of the system, you are put on a different track, you are not going to hold those other kids back. And I think that is unfortunately just the hard reality of the fact that God has decided that we are all going to have different talents. But to try to like milquetoast everybody to stop somebody from feeling bad is insanity. It's self-destructive.
You're with the Asian model. We should have
Asian tiger moms would be embarrassed by how hardcore I am. That is real talk. So yeah, I want to see, listen, I'm obviously being tongue in cheek. I would want my kid to be emotionally stable. I would want them to love their life and all of that. But yes, there would be an extreme expectation in my household, as there was with me. In the Bilyeu household, if you didn't get an A, you had explaining to do. And that level of high expectation, discipline was critical to the success that I've had because it was just beat into me that I had to be good. Now listen, in high school I cheated a lot, but I didn't cheat at all in college. And I did better in college than I did in high school. And so it ended up being this incredibly powerful thing. And the reason that I didn't cheat in college was I was like, my excuse for cheating in high school was always, you're making me learn things that I don't care about. But I've been able to choose what college I go to and what I'm studying. So why on earth would I cheat? I'm going to go out into the real world and actually need these skills. So let me actually acquire the skills. Now, you can say, and I would say, my parents did not do a good job because they didn't understand it. They didn't do a good job of explaining to me why I would need some of the things that I was learning. And because of that, I didn't understand the value of the education. Now, thankfully, once I got to college, I switched, just completely flipped a switch and studied. But that was where I realized, oh, if you put time and energy into getting better, you will actually get better. And so if we have a nation of kids that understand, if I put time and energy into getting better at this thing, I will actually get better at this thing. And I am celebrated and encouraged as I get better at that thing. Now, my parents were also very smart. They made me feel loved even when I failed. But it was very clear, hey, there is this expectation. And what the words they didn't have that I now have are, what we value you for is the sincere pursuit of this. And so if you're actually working and doing your homework and you get bad grades, fair enough. You don't have the aptitude for that thing, that's fine. This one's going to be harder for you. But if you're not putting in the time and energy, then that's a problem. And so that was always where my parents met me, was you needed to explain yourself, but it's not like they didn't love me if I didn't do well. It was just, hey, you're not putting in the work. We know you can do better than this. And so we expect you to go do that thing. And then if I did that thing and still failed, it was like, hey, you tried and we love you for that. And it doesn't matter whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. I don't know if you guys hear that anymore, but that was certainly beat into us as kids. And so that is the kind of energy that people need to bring. That potential is expected to be turned into skills. We all have different levels of potential. Like I was talking about with basketball. I do not have potential in basketball, but my parents expected me to practice. So if you think about, okay, you're going to do this thing, well, then the expectation is that you're on a path to get 100 times better. That's a fake number, but just thinking about maximizing your potential, going hard and working very hard to transform potential into actual usable skills. That should be the mandate. And this is where I come back to talking about education, school unions becoming a weapon that is used to protect the teachers and not elevate the kids. And when you think of unions not as a thing that is necessarily good for the outcome that you're trying to get, but instead a political body that will grow at all costs, grow in political power, grow in dollars and cents, and it's not necessarily good for the organism as a whole. And that's why, at a minimum, there has to be tension there.
Yeah. I'm conflicted at the education level because I do think parenting is very important. I love you guys, but a lot of you guys had bad parents, and that's why you're a crap human being now as an adult. And I'm sorry about that.
True.
But so it's like I can give you standardized tests every day from first grade to sixth grade, but if a parent is just a bad parent, that kid's gonna fail. And it's unfortunate, but that is the one missing piece that no government, no money, no check can facilitate for. So I don't know. I feel a little bit conflicted when it comes to the education thing.
Here's the thing, don't be conflicted at all. That's an incredibly important thing to remember. This is why I believe so firmly that parents should be we need a better word for this, but parents own the kids, not the government. I don't trust the government to be good at anything. And I get that there are going to be horrific parents, but part of that right now is cultural. They are teaching their kids what they think is best. If you think of parents that are, for instance, telling their kids, hey, you might be transgender and like, that's okay. And we love you anyway. And if you're gay, that's fine. Like, if you look at that and go, oh my God, this is an unhinged leftist, you're going to miss that that's a parent who really has seen people suffer and have to stay hidden for years. And so they just want to let people know, hey, it doesn't matter. Like, you're worthy of love and you're just as good as anybody else. Now, it's possible that that actually does nudge kids in a direction, and that not having boundaries that have proven themselves in the fullness of time to be high utility boundaries over, centuries, it's possible. But again, just sort of like dismissing that as somebody who isn't like really with love in their heart being like, I've seen people suffer, I don't want my kid to suffer. They're not, they're trying to do something good and wonderful. And so this is where we have to have the debate and the open conversation and not tell people to just shut up because they're a bigot. It's like, no, we've really got to talk about these things. And then you let parents run the individual experiments. And then we see in the fullness of time what ends up working. That's the only way to do this. But when you force it down on people, either culturally or worse, from the government level, you start running into trouble.
Speaking of Chinese excellence, they're taking over the British Navy slowly but surely.
That's one way to look at this.
So Royal Navy spy drones used by British elite forces were secretly sending data to China.
Yeah, boys and girls, this one, please wake up. This is going to be one of the most important things that we talk about today. Recent revelations have shocked the UK military because Chinese-built military parts have been secretly communicating back to Chinese servers, reminding the entire world that supply chains that run through China create critical security vulnerabilities. We are in a Cold War with China. Iran has been a massive distraction from what is really going to govern our lives for the next 10 to 20 years. And the British Navy has found out the hard way. They had 20 autonomous attack boats that were British designed, British built, and fitted with cameras sold as NDAA compliant. If you've never heard of the NDAA, it exists specifically to guarantee that there's nothing Chinese hiding inside of your military equipment. But yet the cameras were talking to China anyway. Now, this is where I'm going to remind everybody of Stuxnet. Now, nobody knows who created the Stuxnet virus, but the Stuxnet virus embedded itself so deeply in like chips and things like that, that it was like in every part of technology at one point. And its sole job was to figure out, am I an Iranian nuclear centrifuge? And if I am, start kicking off all this crazy data so that they can't get them to work properly. This is how well, when somebody has access to a chip that is manufactured very early, some part of it that goes through China and you don't realize, and as you're doing these audits that you don't even catch it, this is where it becomes problematic not to control your supply chains. As reported by the Telegraph, cameras on the Royal Navy's K-3 Scout drone boats were sending a heartbeat signal, which is like a ping confirming that the device is online, to an IP address in China. The Royal Marines had been running these for months, and the Ministry of Defense was running like a basic cyber assessment, and they saw that it was doing this. Now, the Ministry of Defense is probably right that there's nothing sensitive that went out. That's not the claim. But ultimately, what matters is that when you're talking about modern manufacturing, all roads lead through Beijing. Okay? This is a grand part of the West financializing everything, disguising their lack of blocking and tackling from an economic standpoint of making things yourselves and trying to hide the fact that you are declining by getting things cheaper and cheaper elsewhere, by outsourcing manufacturing, by outsourcing the knowledge, by outsourcing the workforce. All of that ended up going to Beijing because they understood something very simple. America was dominant going into World War II and after World War II precisely because they had become the world's manufacturing hub, that they were doing some ungodly percentage of the world's manufacturing. So they were like, yeah, we're going to do that now. And they did it. It was brilliant. It is exactly what America should be doing. It's exactly what the British should be doing. People should be developing a massive amount of self-reliance because we are, speaking now as America, we are very aggressively in a Cold War with China, and it is going to get hotter before it cools off. That is for sure. Hopefully it never goes to a kinetic war. But boy, oh boy, we don't want all of our military equipment to be running through Beijing. And when you've got the British defense startup that were supplying these devices, being a company in Hampshire, in England, and building what is meant to be sovereign military gear specifically for the Royal Navy, but they're buying from a supplier that, even though it has certifications that they're clean of Chinese tech, they're not. Somehow Chinese components are in there somewhere. You have a global supply chain problem. China builds 70 to 80% of the world's commercial drones, and warfare is going to be a drone game. So we have got to have a solve for this. So this, while this isn't some major breach and they now have maps of everything inside of their equipment, boy, oh boy, is it a potent reminder that even the stuff that we think is totally clear of all this stuff is not clear of all this stuff because of the way that supply chains work. And I know it's going to be difficult. I know it's going to make things more expensive, but we've got to find a way, temporarily more expensive. We've got to find a way to bring things back into our countries. We have to be able to control our destiny. You can't allow manufacturing itself, rare earth magnets, rare earth magnet processing. You cannot allow that stuff to be a choke point far more profound than the Strait of Hormuz. It's just suicide.
We just banned the what are the camera called? The DJIs?
DJI?
DJIs?
DJI drone
yeah,
camera.
yeah. I remember we banned the drones for the same reason. The Huawei electronics were banned because they were,
They'll also flood your market. They'll make it financially impossible for you to build. That's what they're doing right now to Europe in car manufacturing. Now, if you've got Palmer Luckey telling you, hey, I'm making this thing and it can be manufactured on automotive manufacturing lines, and you're China, what industry would you really like to hollow out in any country that will let you? Automotive manufacturing, boys and girls. So keep your eye on the prize. Keep your eye on the prize. You've got to be able to manufacture in your own country. And by the way, if you're China, man, you guys are killing the game. That's exactly, other people should be taking that model. So this is not me going, oh, China's the bad guy. China's smart. That's smart. Do that. Control the world via manufacturing if you can. This is exactly how America got as powerful as it did. And then we forgot the lesson, because that's what happens. You really do get complacent. Things go so well for so long, you think, well, no one is going to take advantage of this. And in the short term, they can't. But in the long term, they aggressively can. And so we've now all got to start playing much longer term games.
Yeah. Is this only in retribution to a future kinetic war? Or is this just healthy country 101?
This is healthy country 101.
Okay.
America has become so hyper financialized that, listen, we talk about this all the time, but looming in the background is a global economic catastrophe. You have all the settings. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. And that becomes the impossibility of this. And it doesn't mean that you get the timing right, even if it does happen. But the reality is, when you look at like what undergirds our actual financial industry, if you guys remember a couple of weeks ago, there was a building in New York that started collapsing under its own weight. That's what our economy looks like. When you really look at the fact that the world is making one bet, and that bet is on AI, and that China is showing you that AI can be done far cheaper, but all this debt already exists. All this debt has already been packaged and sold out into the broader economy. Something like 40% of the gains in the S&P 500 are all AI. Of those bets, it's essentially two companies that control it all. I mean, it's really, really rickety out here. And so, people need to be very careful. This is just what I'm doing. You should assume that I don't know what's going to happen and that I could be making massive mistakes. That is very important. Unfortunately, you must think through this for yourself. But I am reducing my exposure to equities precisely because I look at that and I go, it could still be years more that everything is fine. But I'd rather not be as extended into that market as I am now. Take that for what you will.
I'm going to say a curse word. I hope I don't offend you, Tom. But I think we might need government intervention.
In what?
The financialization of America. And maybe we need to start spending on infrastructure.
Well, okay, so that's an interesting way to look at.
Because to your point, we need manufacturing.
Do you want regulation? Is that what you're looking for?
No, somebody needs to flip the switch to manufacturing in-house.
Yes. No, I agree.
We need to give subsidies to Ford so that way they're building cars here. We need to give subsidies to Tesla so they're building cars here. We need to give subsidies.
Maybe.
So that's what I mean.
Probably don't want to do subsidies quite like that.
But to your point, right now, everybody just wants to put all their money into the stock buybacks, into the financial market so number can go up.
Yeah.
We need some of those dollars, some of those profits to go into actual atoms in the world so that way we can keep making stuff here. Healthy country 101.
Yep.
Because I feel like if I'm a financialized company, I'm not going to put myself in the hole for the betterment of America. Old school CEOs might because they were more patriotic, but new school CEOs, I'm here for 7 years. I got to get my exit. I need to make number go up so I can retire.
Yep.
Like that's the CEO path right now. So I think the incentive system isn't there for the companies. So somebody needs to put their finger on the scale, even if it's just a little bit, to flood it in there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah.
So this is what I've been talking about with the tariffs. Everybody had a stroke when Trump started doing it. That's why the right way to talk about it is Hamilton. The fact that Trump is running the Hamilton playbook, it's just easier to talk about. That this is literally Alexander Hamilton telling you exactly how to run an economy when you want to become the strongest nation in the world. You have to be protectionist. You've got to focus on denying people from bringing in their cheap goods. China, I'm looking at you. And you've got to incentivize the companies to build internally. And you have to use debt in a smart way. And we are doing none of those. And Trump's every attempt to try to do any of that is met with such profound backlash that people just cannot see through to what he's trying to do. And it is unfortunately what we must do because we've got to manufacture things here. You cannot have your rival have a stranglehold on your military equipment. It's just completely insane. England has let China have a chokehold on their entire steel industry, so they can't even make steel themselves. That's crazy. So yeah, it is at a level of absurd that's like, it's not 1990 anymore. So, but people are acting like this is 1990. It's not. Like, you've got to do different things. You've got to now be able to manufacture in your home country or with your tightest allies. And the days of, it's one big world, like, that's over.
This goes to the next story. These stories are lining up perfectly. I would call this unpatriotic, but U.S. defense giants Lockheed and Raytheon are reportedly resistant to licensing out the Patriot missile production to Ukraine because they fear that the Ukrainian manufacturers will be able to improve the Patriot. I'm not going to slander capitalism. I promise I'm not. I'm not going to be called a commie this episode. I'm trying to make it through. I got 30 more minutes. I can almost do it. But if I don't want to help these people in war because I don't want to touch my IP, I feel like that's a little bit dirt. Like, that's a little cronyism.
Well, it's interesting. I don't view this one as cronyism. I view this as stupid on their part. So what I would do is I would say, oh shit, we've got an opportunity for these guys to be an R&D wing of our companies. This is fucking insane.
Yeah.
And I would say, hey guys, cool. We're going to let you manufacture this stuff. All the innovations that you do belong to us. And now all of a sudden you've got necessity is the mother of invention. You've got people who guaranteed will make it better because they are so desperate to make it better. And if they don't make it better, then you're not out anything. You got paid the whole fucking time. Dude, this is where entrepreneurs need to be beaten with a baseball bat by the market. And the market will be like, fuck you, you're dumb. And so when you look at somebody like a Palmer Luckey, this is exactly how he ends up taking these guys over. And 20 years from now, we're all like, who's Lockheed Martin? I've never even heard of them. You're like, oh my God, they were like Anduril, but like back in the day. Oh, what ended up happening? Oh, they had this opportunity to partner with a company or a country that was actually at war that would have innovated and they could have owned all that IP. And they were so afraid to look stupid, and they were so afraid that the cost of their shit would go down. Instead of realizing the U.S. government is standing with the biggest checkbook in the universe, they want to just fucking wipe Iran off the map. If you could do this shit faster, you'd be making money hand over fucking fist. But because you're so slow and you're so fucking expensive, and you do not understand war has already left you behind, that you're gonna fucking cling to your IP, dude. Okay, listen, entrepreneurs out there, this is why you're going to win. Quest came out of nowhere to beat companies tens of thousands % bigger than us. And we absolutely mopped the floor with them because they were so protective of the way that they were doing things that they would literally laugh us out of the room. And we were just like, okay, but if we're right, you guys are all fucked. And guess what? They were all fucked because we came in and innovated because we had to. If we were going to make a name for ourselves, quite frankly, if we wanted the product to exist at all, we had to innovate. And so we did the thing. And then what ends up happening, I remember this conversation at Quest going, we were like fighting for every dollar. And we were like, there's going to come a day where we're going to have a $10 million opportunity and we're going to ignore it because it's too small for us to deal with. And I remember laughing, thinking, there's no way, man. That's so crazy. Why would anybody ever do that? And then you make 20 plus million in a single day and somebody goes, hey, I've got this $10 million opportunity. You're like, I can't even think about that. And this is why the young guy always ends up winning, because you look at that $10 million as the greatest opportunity ever. You innovate to get those $10 million. You get the energy behind you. Now people start looking at you. You're the cool new kid on the block. And now you go crazy. And eventually you calcify into the old dumbass, which is the very thing with my life I'm trying to find out if you can avoid doing. And you need to reinvent. You need to always be hungry. You need to always have that pirate spirit. This is one of the things that made Steve Jobs as extraordinary as he was. At the height of Apple's success, before he got kicked out, at the height of Apple's success, he literally took a group like a Skunks Work group off to a separate building. They hung a pirate flag above the company and were like, we're going to do things totally differently. You've got to somehow be able to capture that spirit. And Lockheed Martin and Raytheon just can't do it. These guys are fucking stupid. And according to The Atlantic, they reported over the weekend that these guys, Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, they're just flat telling Ukraine that we're not going to use what you guys are doing. They're resisting Ukraine's request just for a license to build Patriot interceptors. And this is all absolutely stupid. They have an opportunity to do something so extraordinary, to use the innovations that inevitably come out of a war to make their company better, their IP better. But yes, they would have to sell these things for less than they're worth now. Yes, they would have to accept that their engineers did not innovate as quickly as the guys that are actually being blown up every night, because that's how life works. One last thing, and then I will get off my soapbox. As an entrepreneur, I beg you guys, your ego is going to be your enemy. You're going to want every idea to be yours. Part of the way that I run my companies is to make sure other people get credit for their ideas, to not take credit for their stuff, to even sometimes give them credit for something that I started because I don't scale. I'm only ever going to have a fraction of the good ideas. And if I want to get these great ideas and be able to use them to make my company bigger and better, I've got to realize that having the right answer matters a lot more than being the one to think of the right answer. But I see this all the time. People feel threatened by the people who can create the idea. Don't need to create the idea. Be the one that puts the energy behind the good idea. When you're the one who controls the company, that's only to your advantage. And all you have to do is celebrate people, reward people, pay those people well, tie them into the success. But most people can't do it because they can't get the fuck out of their own egotistical way. It is crazy. Value yourself for identifying the right answer rather than being the one to come up with it. But most people can't.
Man, pride cometh before the fall.
Facts.
Some things are just classic. China, again, winning again. Their central bank just added 20 tons of gold in July, its largest purchase since October 2023. So not only are they beating us on the atoms physical space, they're now out financialization us because they're now preparing for the other side of the eventual crash.
Here's what I love about what they're doing. Right now, China is actually saying, we don't want part of this financialization. That's all bullshit. I want even my money to be about electrons. I want to move heavy things from place to place. And so these guys audited the world and they said, okay, we need to manufacture all the physical stuff and ship it around. Cool, we're going to get the best at that. Second, we're watching what the US is doing. They're financializing everything. This is classic late stage empire. These guys are fucking idiots. So what we're going to do is we're going to get out from under that system. We'll use it while it's beneficial, but then we're going to get out. And they started getting out by buying gold, physical heavy gold, making it illegal to trade paper gold so that people can't artificially influence the price. And more importantly, because they know the smartest among them in the civilian population are looking out at the world going, yo, this is all predicated on one big AI bet in the US. Fuck that. I want to buy gold. Sorry, can't do it on paper. Damn, I guess I'll have to do physical gold. So now they're buying physical gold, as America proved in whatever 1934. Once the gold is in your country, baby, you can do whatever you want with it. So the Chinese government is like, yeah, baby, import all that physical gold, boys and girls. We'll store it for you all as well. if they ever need to, they will just say, sorry, can't sell your physical gold. Or the US made it illegal for decades to own physical gold. That shit is crazy, man. And so that allowed the US to devalue the dollar overnight. Nothing you could do about it because they forced you to sell them all their gold at the low price. And then they jacked the price of gold up and said, okay, you can buy gold now. It's so crazy, man. So anyway, China knows they could do that. So they are doing two things right now. They're selling US debt in massive quantities, their lowest level since like 2008, selling US debt like crazy. Why does 2008 matter? Because we were a fiscal mess. And so China is saying, you guys are the same level of fiscal mess in 2026 that you were in 2008. Let that one sink in. And they're migrating over to physical gold. So these are guys that are saying, yeah, we know what this looks like when an empire makes this mistake, and we're going to do the exact opposite of all of that.
Man, it's going to be interesting to see too, because everybody has the same feeling that the market is about to crash, but nobody knows exactly what that means, what industry will go first, who will get bailed out, where it's going to be subsidized, what's going to be too big to fail, what's not going to be.
You ready for something really unnerving?
What?
Okay, so everybody knows 2008. But 2008 was just when people panicked. 2006 was when people really started realizing, wait a second, the structure of all of this debt no longer makes sense. Because what happened was people were doing the 2 and 28 thing. So you would buy a loan and you would pay like a really small amount for 2 years. And then if you kept that loan, you pay a huge amount for 28 years. And obviously it was nonsensical. Everybody was going to get foreclosed upon. The reason that they were able to do that was housing prices were going up so fast that you could buy a house and then 2 years later be worth so much more that just the gap in the equity that you now had in the property would allow you to get a new loan, and you'd be able to pay off the old loan and the fees, and now you could have a reasonable mortgage. But you needed those 2 years for the property to go up in value. And in 2008, properties were like at all-time highs. Certainly were all-time highs in 2006. And so you couldn't look at the value, just like you can't look at the value of today's stocks and go, we have a problem. What you have to look at is the rate at the increase in property values started going down. And by 2006-ish, they were no longer able to get these big new loans. So in 2006, you start seeing people defaulting. So all-time highs, everybody, like you're hearing like, hey, this is all good. And I remember in 2007 being like, because my wife was like, but property value only goes up and we should buy. And I'm like, I don't know, like something feels really off to me. Now, I didn't understand the economy well enough to have anything other than intuition, but I certainly had the intuition that something was wrong. And so we ended up buying a residence, but we were going to buy an investment property. And I said, no, I don't want to do this. And so we ended up backing out in 2007, not moving forward with doing property as investments. Thank God, obviously, because of what happens in 2008. But that was like what I was picking up on was, oh, these are still all-time high numbers, which is what my wife was going off of. Yo, like they're worth more and more every month. But they were worth more and more at a decreasing rate. And that decreasing rate tells you something. And so if you look at AI, that becomes a question. Is this, are the valuations going up at the same rate? Are they starting to slow down? Looking for the person who gets rewarded, meaning they pull out of a major data center build and their stock price goes up. If you see that, that's probably a pretty important moment where that's telling you public sentiment is beginning to shift. I don't think we've seen that yet, but I'd be surprised if we don't see that in the coming 12 to 36 months.
We can't talk about the economy without the generational run that Trump is on right now. I'm not a I told you so type person. That's not my ethos.
But I told you so.
I'm not bringing this up to say that, but we started this election that Trump was going to be better for the deficit, but there is now a 35% chance that the national debt could hit 50 trillion by 2028 before the end of Trump's current term. If that happens, Trump will solely be responsible for adding approximately 43% of the total U.S. debt across these two terms. I don't know how he got the moniker that he's going to be better for the deficit, but Trump 1 was, it was COVID, but I would have been fiscally responsible, but COVID messed it up. And now Trump 2 is like print, baby, print.
Here's the bad news. Everybody's going to be print, baby, print. No one is going to actually be fiscally responsible.
Rates of acceleration don't matter as long as you're going over the limit, bad. It doesn't matter if you're going over the limit at twice the rate.
No, if you're slowing down, that's certainly better. And if
Okay.
you're speeding up, that's certainly worse.
Okay.
But we are in a populist moment and nobody is going to say that we're going to spend less. Your only hope is that something breaks that's painful enough that people are hurting enough, but you haven't had total collapse yet, that they say, okay, no, for real, now we're going to vote somebody in that's actually going to balance the budget. But that's going to be a tough sell. That sell is certainly not going to be Trump at this point. So also he tried doing things that were fiscally irresponsible and it didn't work, meaning that he comes in, starts doing Doge, Tesla dealerships are getting firebombed. It's becoming just an absolute political liability. Then he realizes, okay, hold on a second. I can promise free things as well, increase the likelihood that I get elected. And so all the things that I want, I'm going to put in the big, beautiful bill. And I'm just going to say, well, these dummies won't reduce the spending on the bad things. And so it's like, yeah, you can expect that to be the thing. Like the stuff I'm spending money on, whether I'm the one that's going for healthcare or pre-K or whatever for everybody, that's the right thing. It's just the military's dumb. Or the military, that makes sense. Like, fuck, we're at war. We've got this whole thing with China. But like all of the fraud and stuff, that's the dumb shit. Like, we got to stop doing that. And it's like, no. The fraud is dumb. Overspending on military is dumb. Like, we've got to balance the fucking budget and then say, what are the important things that within that budget we're actually going to pay for? Instead of my constituents are going to get their free shit, just not your constituents.
Unfortunately, that's where it seems we are at.
That is where we're at. The only question is what happens in 2028? How much economic pain and suffering will there be between now and then such that people change their minds? That's why I need to see what happens at the midterms. If we start seeing Francesca Hong getting elected, if when these guys that have won their primaries actually go up against Republicans and they win, like if the DSA actually gets elected, dude, that is really terrifying, because you want to talk about an accelerating rate of bad. That is way worse than what we have now.
Yeah. In positive news, David Sinclair said AI is making massive gains in the terms of biological work that it can do. This was him on Rogan.
Well, look at what it's done with mathematics. Like just over the last couple weeks, they've solved more than 50 mathematical equations that they have struggled for decade upon decade to try to solve. And AI is like, oh, I got it.
Yeah, well, biology is a little bit more complicated, but already AI is doing a lot of the science that we used to do in my lab. In fact, what we just recently did it in a couple of months would have taken about 160 years to complete.
What?
And it's only getting faster. Eventually someone
Wait a
can
minute,
make
say
a
that
drug
again.
on their phone.
Say that again.
2 months instead of 160 years.
Well, what exactly was it that you had to do?
Oh, so this drink and the pill that we're looking for, that's not easy. Right? So we have some candidate molecules. We have a cocktail that works, but we want a
Are you
single
taking
molecule.
this stuff?
Not yet.
You're thinking about it.
Probably wise.
Yeah.
No one can stop you.
I might. Well, that is true.
Good
is true.
sense
But it'd be a
stops
bad
him.
look if I died. So maybe I wouldn't
What?
do
You're
it.
not gonna die.
I don't think so. We've
Come
done a
on.
lot of safety tests, and it looks really safe. But I'm not going to publicly do anything against the law.
Of
Right.
course.
So here's the thing. I'm not going to publicly do anything. I guess that's a hilarious caveat. I have to say, David Sinclair in person looks young as hell. Like it is
He looks great.
startling. Yeah, how old he actually is. So there is a fascinating thing happening in the world of AI. People are afraid of it, and for reasons I completely understand. But people are afraid of it, and therefore they try to pretend like it hasn't really done anything, and AI's just stalled out, and I don't know why people are overhyping this. You have to separate the financial side of this from the future benefit to humanity. The financial side is they're in real trouble. We're making this huge bet. AI can probably be done a lot cheaper than some of the massive investments that we're making. Revenues coming into these companies a lot more slowly than they expected it. But AI is doing extraordinary things. And this is one of just understanding the rate at which AI can process data and the fact that you can replicate it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So part of the reason that it's doing 160 years in a couple of months isn't that it's necessarily a better thinker. It's that you can create so many copies of it. So if your lab can afford to replicate an AI brain, let's say 1,000 times over, but you can only have 20 people in the lab, even if AI is slightly slower at the thinking, it's going to run 24/7. It's going to be able to detect patterns that otherwise you wouldn't be able to detect because it can hold so much more information in its head. It's educated on everything that's ever been learned and put on the internet by humans. And when one of it learns something, it can teach the others. And so now the rate at which it learns becomes accelerated so massively. And I think health is really going to be the area where people start having their mind blown in such a profound way. Because remember, years ago, it was able to solve the protein folding problem. And so it's able to predict this novel folding of the protein will yield this outcome. And just helping with drug discovery, synthetic testing, things like that is going to be absolutely massive. And so over the next 5 to 10 years, you can expect this stuff to start coming out en masse. And so wildly accelerating the rate at which we get these biological breakthroughs. And the fact, it's interesting hearing Sinclair sort of temper Joe by saying biology is a lot more complicated, but that's why AI interfacing with biology is going to be far more interesting than just it being able to do things in mathematics. So I think there are going to be some pretty profound things that come out of these longstanding math problems being able to be solved. It'll have implications in algorithms and things like that, which will be, I think, very transformative. But what you're going to see in the ability to recognize patterns, pull them together, draw conclusions that become a tangible thing, either a process, a drug, a procedure, things like that in medicine, I think is going to be very profound. Because right now, a lot of things that we have work, but we don't know why it works. And so now imagine AI being able to tell you it's the interaction of these 9 genes with these 3 drugs in this particular sequence. It will be able to find those patterns. We have vast stores of data. And so if on the medical side, we can get all of that freed up so that the AIs can train on it, and I think more and more people will say, yes, use my data. I want the AI to get smarter. And so all of that stuff is going to start to allow us to have breakthroughs at a rate that we're just not used to. And even if that doesn't happen and it's only relegated to the labs, you're seeing that the labs are able to do in 2 months what they have historically, it would have taken them, 100 plus years. It's like that stuff starts to compound because it's not one lab, it's thousands of labs. And so you start going, okay, 1,000 labs can do in 2 months what it would have taken them 106 years to do previously. Now all of a sudden it's like the compounding acceleration is staggering.
This was always supposed to be the promise of AI, though. They're 24-hour humans that don't sleep, don't need rest, are constantly researching, constantly scanning the internet, constantly looking through things. So where a human can do 8 hours on a good day of straight up researching, this thing can do 24 hours, 24/7, and you can stack it times 75, not to mention tie other models or use other frontier models, LLMs against each other, then stack it on top of that. So,
yes, dude, it's so crazy. Because I use this in a gaming context, every day I'm confronted with the new thing that we were able to do. So for instance, the guy that's doing our procedural world generation, he has no 3D talent whatsoever, and he has no programming ability. So he's very good there's certain software that allows you to go in and adjust all these variables, and he's incredibly good at mapping that out and how do you turn that into a world. What he's done is extraordinary. I love this kid. But the other day he was like, oh, hey, I needed to create some 3D assets, so I built a 3D pipeline. And now I can output my own 3D assets. And so I'm just doing all this like procedural generation of world asset, all this. And he showed me what he did. And I was like, it was literally just him. We have a 3D department, but he knew that they were tasked with other things. So he wasn't going to be able to assign it to them, but he needed something to explain the vision of what he's trying to build. I was like, holy shit, insane. And then he can't program, but I wanted a particular look for our lava. And so he's like, oh, hey, I had Claude code the lava. And I was like, what the? So this is a guy that does not know how to code. So he just describes, I want the lava to look like this, to flow like this, to act like this. And it's just like, yeah, say less, fam. And it just goes and does that while he's over working on something else. Dude, it's so wild. And so the only people that are really trying to like dismiss this or getting caught up in these dumb debates about whether somebody that uses AI for scripting has the like AI verbal tics and all that. But it's like, does the person understand the thing that they're learning? Verbal tics or not, if they now understand something they wouldn't have been able to understand because AI acts like the smartest friend you've ever had that you can talk to at any time with any question and they have an answer, is insane. And then all of the other places that it's being used, And so if people are anti-AI, they're going to gravitate to where the AI falls down, and AI does fall down, and there are things it can't do, and there's more things that it sucks at than it's good at. But the things that it's good at, it gives you that ability. Like you instantly can code the things that it can code. And that is insane. We've never seen anything like this before. Yeah, it's wild to me. I'm very sad for people that want to dismiss it. I'm like, listen, embrace it, use it, find out what it's good at, what it will accelerate you, because it will make things possible for you that as of right now, if you're not using AI, it's just not possible. So it's like, let's say it's a low-level superhero experience. You go from, I don't have this power to code a website, just to make it really stupid. I don't have the ability to code a website. If I want a website, I must pay someone or buy one off the rack. 2, I can code a website. Now, that might be low-level superhero shit, but that's still like being jacked into the matrix and being like, I now know Kung Fu. I now know web coding. I can now code, in our case, lava. I can make 3D objects. Like, you now have that ability. It is crazy, man.
It's, I would say, because Zovorians, I think I pronounced your name right in the chat, he kind of flagged it. I think what the problem with AI is, the initial promises, it was Elon. Money's going to be abundant. We're going to have robots everywhere. There's going to be more robots in cell phones. Everybody's going to be roboting, and they eat the sun for free. That's the promises. So people kind of skipped over the LLMs. But when you, to your point of just go to work right now, what do you do every day that sucks? What is the one problem that you have? Feed that into the LLM, and then it can make you twice as productive. You know, it's the everyday smaller things that I think we skipped over because we wanted robot AI, robot future so bad, that we're now discrediting these small incremental things that actually make a big difference when you like stack it up over a long period of time.
Here, you've got your finger on a really important problem of communicators and people that are being communicated to. I learned this lesson with talking about Kaizen in the early days. So in the early days, it was all vision. And so I'd say, okay, here's ultimately where I want to take it. And I would be very careful, and I would say, this is not where we're at today. We're a long way from this, but this is like the 10-year vision. It will only happen in success, yada, yada. But that's where I want to go. And people were like, oh, let me play it. And they expected my 10-year vision now. And I was like, but I said very clearly, that's 10 years from now. It's not where we're at today. So I've now had to learn, you have to communicate what you have now. For people to like make contact with it and say, oh, it's good at this now and it sucks at this now. And yes, like if I put on my sci-fi hat writer, I can see where this is going, and it is likely to be something like this, and that will be very exciting. We will get there. But you might have to say, okay, those things that people talked about happening in 3 years, it's possible that's more like 30 years. But in 30 years, you're probably still going to be alive. So that means that crazy ass future that you're hearing about is going to happen in your lifetime. And by the way, it's not going to be nothing, the 30-year mark. It's going to be every year we're stepping closer and closer to that. Like most people don't think about the fact, if I leave my house right now, I am guaranteed to encounter multiple robots out on the street, multiple robots. So why is everybody saying that that robot future doesn't exist? I'm going to see those little delivery bots driving around, guaranteed, for sure. In West Hollywood, you see them all over the place. And then I'm going to see Waymos, for sure. Those are both embodied robots right now. Now, how many people are going to see a drone as they go about their day? Probably a lot, especially in fire season, right? You're going to see the drones patrolling and stuff. Drones now patrol cities and look for crime and shit. So it's like, kids, you're already living it. You're always projecting, the thing I have, that's boring. Like, I want to go to the crazy thing. Like, I remember when Amazon first started talking about, we're going to do deliveries by drones. That sounded so stupid to me. I was like, bro, come on. Like, you guys have that much money that you're now talking about doing deliveries by drone? That's never going to happen. Of course, now it happens. So you just step deeper into that water every day, a little bit more. And so brushing it off as if, because we're not all the way there today, that it is not the future that is racing towards you like a supersonic train in Tokyo is dumb. It is racing towards you like a supersonic train. It will happen so fast that people's heads are going to spin. And so, be an early adopter, get in, find where the edges are. It does far less than you want it to and far more than most people realize.
Cool. We got some super chats.
Yes, we do. First up, Patrick
Super
Wrightson with a $50 super chat says,
Oh, damn, coming in hot.
Thank you for $50 super chat, Patrick.
good morning, fellas. Tom, not sure if you've seen some of the IRA noises coming out of Ireland, but it looks like, whether you want to ascribe it to Christianity, the West, etc., looks like that scary gear does indeed exist deep in there.
Yeah, so I didn't cover it today. It was on the list, but the more research I did, it's right now very hotly contested whether the new IRA actually made the claims that are being attributed to it. But the claims that I've not been able to verify are that the IRA has made a statement to the government saying, if you don't get immigrants out of our country, we will start a civil war. Now, again, that feels like hyperbole. If we can get that backed up, I grew up during the IRA era, so I know how often they were blowing things up. So certainly the IRA of old was capable of that. Will the new IRA do that? I certainly hope not, but it is very possible. Now, you want to talk about something that we may not be there yet, but looking out into the future, if you start researching the spread of Islam, you're going to run into the Crusades, you're going to run into violent conquest, you're going to run into violent pushback. When you look at Spain's very interesting, you get two-way slaughtering. So first the Muslims come in, they slaughter, they win. The Spaniards go up into the mountains. They spend hundreds of years repopulating. They come back down, they slaughter. And then there's sort of this brief equilibrium. And then they realize that there's going to just be constant warfare. So they finally boot all Muslims out and look at what, how Islam spread initially. And so, I would not expect whatever moment we live through, it's going to be on a continuum. And religions tend not to go quietly. And so, yes, you will have, even if Islam does end up becoming the dominant global religion and it's got strongholds in every country, which the more I look at it, the more I think that Muslims are running a very brilliant strategy. Imagine for a second that you really believe you represent the will of God and you love everybody and you want to see them all find their way into heaven. Well, you've got to spread and you've got to go everywhere, just as Christian missionaries went all over the place. And if you got in your back pocket that, hey, we try to do this in a really positive way, but if you don't go for the positive, then we've got a few more tools in our toolkit. It's a brilliant strategy, but I do fear that it is going to be met with violence. So strap in. I don't know if it's us, if it's our kids, if it's our grandkids, but yeah, things tend not to go quite. History says there will be violence. I will just say it like that. So we'll see what part of the continuum we're on. And the IRA may be the tip of the sword to answering that question. We'll see. I hope not. Boy, I don't want to see violence. So we'll see.
Dennis Brandel says, "Hi, Tom and team. Thank you for the time and energy you're investing. Following since day one of your lives, I feel deeply grateful for you guys helping me building my views of the world, mankind, and myself.
Thank you,
Best
Dennis.
from the
That means
heart."
a lot. I
Nice.
appreciate
Shout
that
out to
very
the
much.
day
Thank you
ones.
for
We
being
out
here.
here.
No doubt.
Next up.
Oh, damn. I was like waiting then for the hard question.
Oh, no, that was it.
As always, we are extraordinarily grateful for people who donate to this cause just to say something nice. Very generous.
Voodoo Priest says, "This is as much for Drew and his crusade for housing. You need to check out Mitchell Wexler. The fraud in school systems colluding with property appraisers is to increase property taxes to issue new bonds against our homes."
I'm really going to hate that.
Voodoo Priest again with 20. Thank you for the 40
thank
total.
you, Voodoo Priest.
Thank you, sir.
Tom, I used AI to build an educational tool that stress tests your assets against 150 years of financial downturn.
Oh!
I know there is a market for this kind of tool. How do I get this in front of people?
Okay, unfortunately, the answer to this kind of thing is always social media. So social media is the version of the public square. Back in the day, you would go into the public square, you'd go to the marketplace, and you would literally hawk your wares. You would stand out front, you would carnival bark, you would get people in. Now you've got to do it in social media. This is, by the way, exactly what I teach people how to do in Zero to Founder. But you're going to put out content that adds value to people's lives. Okay, so you're going to tell them about it. Here's what my AI says. By the way, so you're going to show them. They're going to be like, oh my God, that's insane. Then you're going to say, you can go here, you can download it, get a free trial, whatever. Get people using it. They will see, holy hell, this is incredible. If you look at Steve Keen, he does this, right? He does all of his content telling people what to worry about, how the economy really works. And he's constantly showing you, here's my software. This is how it works. This is how it reveals what's really going on. By the way, you guys can get access to this. Go here, sign up. So you just do that. You want to show people that it really works. You want to add value to their life and free content. And then the call to action at the end of the free content is the thing. This is exactly what we do. The live show is me showing you, here's how I think through hard problems. And then we end, like we will today, by talking about the next AI masterclass. I'm going to walk you through how to do this. I'm going to teach people how to be entrepreneurs. And then you go, well, he is good at explaining all those things. Maybe he's just as good at explaining this. Now, if I were really trying to optimize for dollars, which is precisely what I recommend you do, the content that I would do would be just business. I find it very boring. I don't want to just talk about that endlessly. So I want to talk about like really consequential issues in far broader set of topics. So I have what's called a broken line. You want to do a straight line of marketing. That's a tangent for another day. But just add value in the same way that you plan to sell the value later.
Question, right?
Yep.
Last week we were talking about physical products, and you were saying you should always do a product market fit versus just try to market cool shit. So what's that line between I have this cool thing that I'm not necessarily sure the market wanted versus this is the way to this is the way.
Okay, so product market fit is about I'm selling something to people that already know they have the problem and they are desperate for a solution. And so all I have to do is say, hey, I've solved that problem for you. Imagine somebody goes, oh, I have healthcare. It's the best healthcare on planet Earth. It's $1.99 a year, and you get access to literally the top stuff. We've had 40,000 people go through it. Not a single one of them has $1 of debt, and their average life expectancy has gone up by 5 years. You'd be like, bro, I need that. I'm going to sign up immediately. Now, that's obviously not a promise anyone can make, but that's an example of a problem people know they have. My healthcare sucks. I'm terrified of going into debt. Maybe I've got kids and I don't know what to do and I'm scared. And so it's like, I've solved that problem and it's very cheap and I've got social proof, right? And so it's like, I just need to make people aware of it. So you want to be in that position of it's too good to be true. That was where we were with Quest in the beginning. I could not give away a Quest bar for free to a bodybuilder when we first started because they all had all these beliefs about protein bars. So they're like, there's no way. I guarantee you guys are lying about something for sure because they'd been burned so many times. And so it was really us being like, dude, take a bite of this, take a glucose monitor and just look at the results. That's all you have to do. What does it taste like? What's your glucose response? Period, end of story. And so, but it took time to build that up. So you want to be in that position. You know you have product market fit when people are like, yeah, right, that's too good to be true. And then you just have to be consistent, get it out there. When you don't have product market fit, like take Kaizen. Kaizen's a video game. There's so many video games out there. Nobody's like, you know what I need, bro? I need a video game. There's just none. Yeah. You might be able to say, oh, that kind of video game that you like, you've played through all of them. I'm the next one that you can play, but then they're going to play and move on. So it's like entertainment is so hard because the problem you solve is boredom. They have endless opportunities to solve for boredom. And so far more difficult. I'm at a point in my career where I can do this because I've been successful in an area where it was like find product market fit. People wanted something convenient that tasted like it had sugar, but didn't. And so we had to do the hard behind the scenes work to solve that problem in manufacturing. And so when people realize, wait, this bar tastes like it has sugar. Yes, but it doesn't have sugar. No. And it's convenient. Yes. And so it was like, okay. So now I gave them essentially a cookie they could carry in their pocket, but it gave them the protein they were looking for and tasted awesome. So then people were like, oh, you solved a problem that I actually knew I had, wanted somebody to solve, but all the protein bars that were on the market were terrible for me. And so they didn't eat them. So anyway, Palmer Lucky is solved. Palmer Lucky. There we go. Final answer. Palmer Lucky is solving a problem the military knows it has. They need cheap and effective missiles. Got you. And so now it will be easy for him to sell that in because it's product market fit.
Got it.
Big Digglers, on the Strait of Hormuz. One wonders if one angle is the U.S. trying to play for time to allow alternatives to come online with minimal market disruption. Tom, did you reach out to Brent Johnson and George Gaiman on par with Snyder?
I haven't reached out to them, no, but I started looking into, I think it was George Gammon.
Yeah.
I haven't gone deep enough on them to have a fully fledged thing, but they are on our list of to considers. And then in terms of, do I think that they're just playing for time? I do not. I think that they'll have enough time that if other opportunities present themselves, they would take it. But I think we have a manufacturing problem. We just can't make the munitions fast enough. And you're not going to solve that in the next 18 months.
Swirling Dragon Mist says affordability is not price reduction, it's subsidy of higher prices. Affordability lines pockets, balloons costs, and calls it an improvement.
That's true. Those are facts. Also, affordability is just a marketing message. It is not affordable. If you really want something to be affordable, you have to solve the root cause. If you take housing, make more houses. Make more houses. It's supply and demand. If you make more houses, then the value of the houses that already exist will go down. And that's the problem. And that's why they don't do it. But that is self-evidently what you need to do to solve the problem. Everything else is a gimmick. It will not work, not long-term. It will simply move the cost or the pain somewhere else. Like there is, I'm triggered by this person at a purely like aesthetic level. Hearing them talk makes me go crazy. So I know that they fall into this Mamdani bucket for me. But there's this new woman. I forget her name.
New woman? She just dropped.
She basically, yeah. She's a DSA person, and her dad is like a 4-time Grammy winner. You should be able to find her pretty easily. She's a housing chick. Basically never paid rent. She's been on rent strike for like 3 years or something. Owes like $108,000 in rent. And believes that we should abolish rent. There it is. She wrote a book called Abolish Rent. And so the building that she's in, she refuses to pay rent. Now look, it's possible that guy is evil, but she refuses to pay rent. He's an immigrant trying to like get by, not a trust fund baby, like an entrepreneur, like really trying to make it happen. People forget that businesses are buildings. Buildings are businesses. And so by taking the product and not paying for it, he ends up losing the building. So he literally lost the building. So she puts this guy into foreclosure and is now trying to teach more people how to like fuck over immigrants. Like it's so crazy. So this kind of thing drives me absolutely up a wall. This is precisely why I stopped being a landlord, by the way. I was just like, it is such an attack vector. Like people can literally hold you hostage for rent. I went through one thing with a tenant where the judge goes, I want to be honest, you're being legally extorted, but you have to deal with this. And I was like, yep, I'm selling all my real estate. And so anyway, I've sold our real estate. But that's like, good luck. Like when everybody's like, I don't want to be a landlord, good luck getting increased supply.
And it's crazy that she's a trust fund baby and she put like the immigrant out of business.
Correct. Because she doesn't even have a frame of reference for what it's like to struggle and try to make something happen. When she grew up in like not that this is super important, but it's a fact. She grew up in a $1.7 million apartment, which when she was a kid, that would have really been something. So yeah, anyway, you're going to see more and more of this. This is the overproduction of elites. This is kids that grew up safe and sound with plenty of money, now telling people who've had to fight for every dollar that, hey, we've got a solution, and that solution is communism. It's fucking retarded. This is so irritating. They hate workers. They hate workers. I want to be very clear about that, which is why, remember, the only people they hate more than workers are the billionaires, the wealthy class. They've done cross-cultural studies. People like this will vote for policies that hurt the poor as long as it hurts the wealthy. And they will not vote for a policy that helps the poor if it also helps the wealthy. Okay? Hear me again. Cross-cultural studies, meaning it doesn't matter what country you run this test in. This is just how humans are. People will vote for policies that hurt the poor if that's what's required to hurt the rich. And they will not vote for policies that help the poor if it also helps the rich. That's evil. That is literally evil.
All right, next up, Chaos Ballads. There's also a consideration of what environment you're in as far as health goes. My sister recently concluded that leukemia she had when she was 10 to 12 was the result of our father's and stepmother's constant smoking.
I hate how true that is. Now, I don't know that smoking has ever led to leukemia. It's certainly possible. environment matters tremendously. That's why I use the example of radon. It's something that can cause lung cancer. People know that it causes lung cancer, and yet you can find yourself around it and not realize you're around it. That's rough. To never smoke a day in your life and die of lung cancer. Fuck me. And by the way, it just comes from the earth. It is something that rocks emit. It just is what it is, man. So yeah, that's real shit.
Big Dicklers with another 20. So thank you for the 40 total.
Yeah, big today. Thank you, big.
Drew, the vector you need to win Tom over, the Hamiltonian system. The U.S. extends credit and strategic tariffs to U.S. innovators to foster critical industries. Consider the DOW's Department of Strategic Capital as an example.
Yeah, yes, correct. That is how you would win me over. Well said.
T-Money says, interesting how Ryan will defend Piker while libelously calling Fuentes a Nazi, even though Piker is espousing a more deadly ideology and uses more violent rhetoric on the regular. Tom, you're great. Keep being you.
Eating popcorn, waiting for Ryan's reaction.
Thank you.
My reaction.
Well, so hold on. Is he referring
said he's
to
a
something?
Nazi?
Hold on. Time out. I need context.
Yeah.
Is this from something you said previously, or were you in chat?
I think he's
debating?
talking from like an episode or two ago, like my argument is still the same from last time. But the bigger thing here is Fuentes went on the record saying Adolf Hitler's pretty fucking cool and called himself a modern neo-Nazi and went and denied the Holocaust live in front of an audience of Jewish folks. So like
all horrific.
He's a Nazi.
But at least he's not a Maoist who was far. You guys see this? This is what hurts my soul. That's funny. But Mao killed far more people than Hitler.
How about
by a lot?
Decent human being. I don't want to get into policy wonk mode. I'll be quiet. I'll stay out.
That shit is crazy to me. You should have a wild aversion to Hitler.
J.G. Obroho says that doesn't make him a Nazi. Bro's a Nazi. He said he's a Nazi. He said he's a Nazi, chatter.
That doesn't make him a Nazi because he says he's a Nazi. Okay.
I have to
cut
say,
you off, Tom. Chatter's going crazy. And I'm just like,
if somebody says they're a Nazi, I think pretty officially that
that's all it takes to become a Nazi, right?
Take a song out of this whole conversation. Fuentes says he's a Nazi. Like, that's not me making
That's good enough for me. Yeah. You will hear me say many times, if somebody tells you who they are, believe them. So if Nick is telling you straight up, I'm a Nazi, well...
Okay, you have to
pretty
get this
believable.
one. You're not being honest if you're calling DSA closer to Maoism than the Nordic model.
Bitch, are you for real?
I got to give you that.
Am I being trolled right now?
No, you have to answer that because that comes up a lot.
Let's go. Ready? So look at what they actually say. You guys are unfortunately in the bad position of I've now been triggered. So I am keeping a document with the DSA in their own words. There's video footage of Hassan Piker being given the little red book of communism from Mao, written by Mao, the most murderous person since Genghis Khan, and being like, oh my God, and celebrating it and being so excited. And the guy on his team is like, some people say that this is more important than the Bible. And he was saying it as a way of like trying to say, hey, I'm one of those people that says that this is more important than the Bible. I could stop there. There is more on, I've got like, I don't know, 15 to 20 of them now, and I collect more every single day. They talk about things like abolishing the rent. They talk about rent controls. They talk about abolishing the borders. They talk about amnesty for immigrants. They talk about getting rid of police. They talk about getting rid of prisons. Are you fucking retarded? I cannot believe that you hear all of that noise and think that they're espousing a Nordic model. The Nordic model is broad tax base for everyone, and then a big social safety net. That is very different than no borders. That's very different than no police. That's very different than abolishing rent. That's very different than all the dumb-ass pro-murderous Mao policies that these guys put forward. They actively campaign on Marxist principles. They talk about Marxism. They talk about Leninism. Dude, you are out of your mind if you think these guys are espousing a Nordic model. That is so naive and so crazy or so propagandistic that you are not to be trusted, either because you cannot parse reality or because you have accurately parsed reality and you are trying to bamboozle people. So that's some wild shit. That shall not stand on this show. Fuck that.
One more super chat. Anthony Thompson says, what if they make houses in bad and poor neighborhoods where the property value is already low due to crime and then install community security in those neighborhoods? Would that solve things?
You just explained gentrification.
Yeah.
Well, so
recreating
That's just
gentrification
what's happening now.
from first principles.
that's funny. That's funny. Drew, that was good. Yeah. So this is unfortunately a largely true statement. You might get closer to what you're looking for if they were to build enough housing that housing prices stabilize at something that's reasonable. You don't want them to keep going down over time because then it will just become an impoverished neighborhood. But you want them to stabilize at something that's reasonable. Let's call it a middle income, being able to afford the average house on a single income. Like if you make that the thing you're aiming at, then it becomes really about policing. The problem is that you've really got to over police the areas that are likely to be lower income because you need law and order for businesses to come in. When businesses leave, that's when you get into this death spiral. So you want to be able to have nice sort of budget, nice things. So if you think about, this was one of the things that made Target so exceptional in the beginning, was they had people, they would do collaborations with high-end people like a Martha Stewart, and they would make something really nice, but it could be bought on a budget. And so if you've got areas like that where, listen, it's not going to be something fancy that you would find in a Manhattan penthouse, but it's something that's affordable, they're nice, it's something that somebody can take pride in, you want to focus on getting them ownership. This is where I threatened to do a deep dive on Lee Kuan Yew a while ago, because I have a feeling there's a lot to learn, especially because he told the communists that he would literally fight them. I can't remember if he said to the death, but he said literally fight them. Like, I will be violent towards communists. So you had me at hello. But his whole thing, and I'm early enough that I could be giving him too much credit, but I don't think so. I think his thing was, I, Lee Kuan Yew, want to be wealthy, but I'm going to hold myself accountable to only getting as wealthy as the people in my country. And so if I want to have AC, the people in my country have to have AC. If I want to have a house, the people in my country have to have a house. It's a pretty gangster way to both get extraordinarily popular and build a dope system. Because you're saying, I fucking want to be rich. I don't want to be like some lame ass who doesn't have a house, and I don't want to be a lame ass who doesn't have AC. Like, I want a dope fucking country. If you guys don't know, he's the guy that built Singapore out of a literal swamp. So that to me is awesome, but you have to have people that are willing to do that. And this is it's a form of leadership that you don't get in late stage empires. You get that kind of, and he was a little bit gangster. He was like union busting and telling the fucking communists that they could fuck off and like, I'm here to fight you. That's a hardcore guy. And so, man, they don't come along very often. But when they do, this is your George Washington's, right? The guy in the front line of the war. That's like, all right, well, if we're going to become a country, I'm going to get shot at as much as the next person. I'm going to be the last one to cross back over into safety when we're getting attacked. Yeah, it's just tough, man. It's tough to find people that hardcore that are both truly big of heart, actually want good things for you, but like Washington, murdered in cold blood traitors.
All right, we're good at
People don't love that, but you got to be willing to do both. We're what?
So are we good? I have to pee.
Drew doesn't like where we're going, boys and girls. That was an eject button. I've needed to pee for quite some time, but hey,
you didn't hear me bitching about it.
Drew's like, I'm done with this shit. All right, did we get all the super chats?
Yeah, that was the list.
We are admittedly 21 minutes over. got pretty extended here.
The leg shake it.
All right, you guys are dope. Thank you for joining us. The next ITU AI masterclass.
Oh wait, we got another super chat.
You're a
last
troll,
minute,
buddy. You're a troll.
I know. He was
You're
like,
a troll for that.
I could spend $20 to make Drew wet himself.
Oh no, it's T Money guys, thank you for the 40 total. T Money says Fuentes does not and has never claimed to be a Nazi. His Hitler is cool statement was used to shift the Overton window because it is sacrilege to the anti-nationalist movement that leftists use to control conversation.
Were we being propagandized by Ryan and we all fell for it?
4D chess, Ryan. You don't get it.
It is maybe
I know
a
the
little
quote
too
is,
believable that he said, I'm a Nazi.
He's said on his show before that
Bring
he's like,
receipts.
I'm not a Nazi, I'm a neo-Nazi. He's also said Hitler was
Bring the
pretty
receipts.
fucking cool.
We'll play 'em.
He's also said the
let's go.
Holocaust wasn't real. Like,
Bring them. We will shut them down next time, but let's have the receipts.
okay, I'll bring him next time if you want.
I love it. Let's find out who's right. Oh shit, Drew's engaged now. Now all of a sudden his bladder got big. All right, let's see what
I
we
just think
got.
there's some things that's like it's not worth arguing over someone like Nick Fuentes. You know what I mean?
I don't know, man. Let's go. This is good TV.
You're
Let's
saying
see what he said.
I'm a Nazi. This is the closest one I can see.
Does he actually say it? Play it.
And we all see what's going on here. Look at the coordinated attack on social media from everywhere, from all sides. Look at all the bad clips he's ever said. He's a Hitler worshiper. He's a Nazi. He's a monster. He's terrible. No one should be his friend. No one should talk to him.
Dramatic pause.
We're not stupid. We see what's going on. It's obvious. These are the same smear tactics, the same bullying, intimidation, harassment, the same psycho berserker tactics they've used for years. And everybody is sick of it. And newsflash, it's not working. I'm more popular than ever. Nobody knows who Mark Levin is that's under the age of 50. Mark Levin, who?
That's probably true.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Nobody watches
But he's
Ben
not saying I'm a
Shapiro
Nazi
anymore.
here.
People are watching Candace Owens. My clips are going viral. I have millions of followers. I have millions of views because people agree with me. You can call me a Nazi. You better be careful. Because if I'm a Nazi, then there's millions of young people that are following a fucking Nazi. So you better be careful about those
So
words.
that's not him claiming he's a Nazi, though. Ryan, you're going to have to find it. No
If you
receipts
want me to
there.
go down the rabbit hole, here's the thing: Nick Fuentes has been on the scene for longer than when he blew up. You got to he's in my age group. There are clips of him the same way there's clips of Hassan, the same way there's clips of Asmongold, and he has said on a clip, "I'm a Nazi," and also he has said the Hitler thing. So it's like, again, what is this chatter even trying to argue? Because none of us care about Nick Fuentes. He's irrelevant to all three of us.
He's definitely not irrelevant. He's not somebody I cover very often because he makes me deeply uncomfortable, but he definitely has the ear of a lot of people. So I would not dismiss him in that way. I think it is very unwise to dismiss a political opponent simply because you think they're outside the Overton window. Nick Fuentes, if nobody else proves that that's true, because he just gained and gained and gained in popularity because he was the guy that nobody could listen to. It was just like you were auto-exiled, and that ship has sailed, man. People don't go for that.
I have a direct quote from him if
Let's
you
go.
want. Why is Hitler cool? I'll tell you why very simply. Because what Hitler represents is if white people didn't give a fuck.
Okay. That's not
I
him
feel
saying
like-
he's a Nazi, but that is him going to bat for a Nazi.
But
Yeah,
then
you could call him a Nazi
Hassan's never
apologist.
said he's a
Yeah,
Maoist, but
a
he
Nazi
goes to
apologist.
bat for it then in that argument. Like then on the
Yeah,
same page, we
word,
should hold that same
preach.
that Hassan isn't a Maoist because he doesn't say he's a Maoist.
Just keep in mind, you're arguing with the chatter, not with me.
No, I know, but I'm just saying
that to me is a very damning statement, which would be, if that was the first thing I ever heard from him, I'd be like, cool, that guy's disqualified from me in terms of people that I would want somebody to listen to, because that's full retard. But we do want to be careful on this show, if nowhere else, that, for instance, take Mamdani. I think I'm sometimes in danger of underselling what Mamdani is trying to do because I'm so paranoid about putting words in his mouth that he didn't say. There was the other day I said, okay, well, he didn't technically say this and he's doing this. And then later in the day, I was like, I know what he's doing. And I went too hard, like giving him grace, but I would rather find myself in that situation. So anyway, the things he says sound bad enough that you don't have to push all the way to him saying I'm a Nazi. If he did say it, grab the clip and we'll play it.
It was on
But
something he did a while back at a conference, and he was
Anybody
like,
watching the screen,
my parents are telling me not to say this stuff, but I don't care because I'm right. And then he just went on a really big anti-Semitic tirade for 20 minutes.
Oh, I don't have any trouble believing this guy's anti-Semitic.
I can't find it. He had one of the hardest TikTok edits though. When he was like, "I'm the only one with emotion. None of these conservative." Y'all don't remember that one?
I do remember that. It went all over Twitter.
That was a hard edit. I can't find it.
I have
though.
seen precious little of Nick Fuentes.
Yeah, he had a hard edit.
You've saved yourself from the weirdos.
No, it was crazy because he was like, "Forget Candace." Like it was a good edit. I can't find it though.
His fans have a name for themselves. They call themselves the Groypers.
Groypers.
Where does that word come from?
Them. They made
But
it.
what does Groyper?
I just remember the green frog figure, like the
Yes.
meme green
That's
thing?
them.
Was that a
That's
groiper?
That's a groiper, I'm guessing.
It's just a meme term
Yeah.
made for the far right white supremacist political commentator Nick Fuentes.
But that word has an etymology, and I need to know because
It comes from the Pepe the Frog cartoon that
But why?
you're talking about.
It sounds
I don't know
like
what groper
groper.
is.
That's why I was always like, wait, what?
I have no clue. That's it. Quite literally, you'd probably have to dig to the depths of Reddit to find that.
Make what I doubt I want the answer to this, but what is NGAF? Make NGF great again. Somebody in chat just said that. I have a feeling. Yeah, so I get that it's the frog. I'm saying why is that frog called a groiper?
I don't think it's the frogs. I think it just originates from the meme. Like it's just like the meme is there
no one
and
knows,
something with the
basically.
creator. I mean, I think it's such a weird group of people that people just kind of stay away from it and no one really knows.
Yeah.
Someone said it's a play on goy. I don't know what that is though.
Really?
The gropers around you on Twitter as an internet meme on image boards like 4chan depicts fat, 13, Groiper army. Yeah. Linguistic tracks it being a blend of goy and griper.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Got it. So they're a goy griper.
Yeah.
Got it.
Groiper.
Groiper. Okay. Well, now we know. Thank you. That was the etymology I was looking for. All right. Well, this has certainly been a very strange last 10 minutes. I loved it. I hope you guys did as well. In my AI masterclasses, we have one coming up on Thursday, and I promise the word Nazi won't come out of my mouth, and we won't be playing any Nick Fuentes clips. But here on the lives, I'm totally game for it. But on Thursday, September 10th at 1 p.m. Pacific, I will teach you guys how to build a business using AI. These classes are awesome. I love teaching them. People are getting a lot out of them. They are completely free. So join me September 10th at 1 p.m. Pacific. Link is in the description. All right, guys, love you bunches. We will see you on Wednesday. And until then, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Peace.